So the public can also access this meeting via WebEx technology. The Burlington School Committee will hear public comments in person and virtually, but only in reference to agenda items this evening. Meetings are also broadcast live on Burlington Cable Access TV, and video audio recordings are being made. Access code is 2337-804-4601, and the password is Tuesday. This meeting hearing of the Burlington School Committee will be held in person at the location provided out in this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if there's technological interruptions, the virtual broadcasts, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person or virtual attendance accordingly. If you are participating remotely, please identify yourself by typing your name on the screen in advance and verbally once you're identified to speak. We request that you please turn on your camera. The equity statement is next. Educational equity means that every child belongs and receives whatever support he, she, they need to develop his, her, their full academic, emotional, and social potential to learn and thrive every day. This begins with kindness and valuing the humanity of every child and individual. So the first item on the agenda is approval of the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, so it's a 5-1, 4-1-0. 4-0-1, sorry. Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is learning, equity, and thriving. Dr. Conti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is a special budget meeting, so the agenda items from the regular business meeting that was canceled will get pushed till next Tuesday's regular business meeting. These agenda items, they're either a first reading or we have a time constraint. So again, just very briefly, in your packets was the lab agreement and expansion, again for a first reading. Just to give you some background, as lab, we were very excited to bring in a new executive director, Pam Gerard, this year. Pam has been going through the organization, like you all go through the school district, and she has updated essentially the collaborative agreement and bylaws. So that is what's in front of you. The collaborative, again, exists of Lexington, Arlington, Burlington, Belmont, and Bedford. That's obviously stands for lab. We are having a bit of a space crunch. And so with the dissolution of EDCO, which was another collaborative, there were some communities that were left without a collaborative to send their students. And Watertown was a community that was contiguous to lab communities, and Watertown was willing to provide space for lab programming, because that's a condition of being part of the lab collaborative is you agree to provide space so that the collaborative programs can take place in a school. So an area of shortcoming for us was vocational programming space. And we used to have that program at Minuteman, and the former Minuteman, you may not realize, was a much larger school. And I think it was built for roughly 2,000 students. The newly constructed Minuteman, which is a beautiful school, is I think for around 900 students. So there wasn't a whole lot of additional space. So the plan, as you'll read in the collaborative agreement, again, codifies the initial lab, the original lab group and bylaws, and then also with approval of this committee and the other 5 communities on the second reading, We're proposing to expand the collaborative to include Watertown, again, a contiguous community. And then Watertown has agreed to provide vocational space in their high school for lab programming. So again, I support that.
How are we going to get a W in there?
Are we going to get a W in there? I don't know. We're going to lob or something.
WBB.
Maybe lab plus W. I don't know. We'll figure something out. But again, so Pam asked that this be done because it has to go in front of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for their approval in April, which is why we had the first reading now, and again, the second reading will be
Next week.
next Tuesday. Are there any questions on sort of the context or the background? Thank you. Madam Chair, out-of-state travel, again, I'm trying to move quickly because of the long agenda. Reason we added this is, again, is the timeliness of it. So over last weekend, at the DECA State Conference, 24 Burlington students qualified to attend DECA's International Conference. And again, 20 of the 24 students will be attending. The out-of-pocket cost of the trip and applying some fundraising funds is $1,200 per student, paid for by the participant's family. The high school business department, Krista Anderson and Danielle Truve, will be attending as chaperones, and students will be flying out of Logan to Orlando and back. There is ground transportation in Orlando, and parents will drop off and pick up their students from Logan. Recommend that the school committee approve the out-of-state travel for the DECA qualifiers for the International Conference in Orlando.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any additional discussion?
Good luck to the competitors.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Sounds great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And I'm an aye, so it's 5-0-0.
The students, when they return, will usually come before us and let us know how they did, so we'll try to get that planned. Statement of interest, Bob, you want to do a two-minute on this, statement of interest? And I'll read it, but if you want to introduce it.
The 2-minute is, again, through the chair, thank you. Statement of interest is through the MSBA, Massachusetts School Building Authority, and what we are doing is applying a statement of interest for the Burlington High School. This would be Lucky 13, so hopefully in January we will have a positive answer to that, but in order for us to submit our application, we not only need this board to read the text that's provided, vote on it, and then I need to attend a select board meeting as well too to get their approval for submission.
So again, the committee has done this, I think this is our 13th time, so it should be relatively familiar. So be it resolved, having convened in an open meeting on March 21st, 2023, prior to the statement of interest submission closing date, the School Committee of Burlington, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated March 21st, 2023, for the Burlington High School located at 123 Cambridge Street, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Priority number 3, prevention of the loss of accreditation. Priority number 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility. And priority number 7, replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting the statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the city, town, regional school district to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
You want to vote? Do we have a motion? I move
Yep.
that we, what's the
We
wording
are
for
supposed
the
to vote.
motion?
Do we have a motion?
I would say school committee accepts the resolution as read.
The school committee accepts the resolution as read.
I'll second that.
Okay, any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm an aye, so it's 500.
Thank you. The final
Actually,
pressing.
Can I make one comment? I know we're in a rush.
Yeah.
I would like maybe at the next meeting for us to talk a little about the history of this, because I think there are people who think that we keep doing the same thing and why are we expecting anything different, and maybe we're not writing the proposal right, and things like that, which I don't think are accurate. So maybe next time we could talk a little about the criteria and what happened in our master plan that proposed it originally about 12 years ago. Would that be okay?
I-
Great,
Sure.
thanks. Okay.
Okay,
Bob, you'll be attending the Board of Selectmen meeting
The 27th.
on the 27th? Okay. And then the deadline for the submission is April 8th, so, thank you. Mark or Joe, can I ask you to just join us briefly for this last agenda item, please? This was timely because we needed to propose a change to the existing program of studies or the program of studies for next year.
Next year.
Okay, could you just explain the change briefly, please?
It's just it's actually not a change, it's more of a clarification.
Okay.
So we have 4 classes that are required for seniors, for a senior wellness requirement. So the seniors, rising seniors, need to choose one of 4 classes. And so we also have an exploratory requirement. So we just wanted to clarify that students need to take one of those courses as a senior health requirement. But if they wanted to take an additional one, they can do that and use that for the exploratory requirement. So it's somewhat detail-oriented, but there are a couple of students that we want to make sure that that is clear.
And I saw that you showed me that language.
Yes.
Okay, and then we submitted that language to the committee. So again, would request a motion to approve the clarification to the high school program of studies, which was already approved.
So moved?
Second.
okay. Any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I'm an aye, 500.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is what we've all been waiting for, the FY24 budget session, as we know. Dr. Conti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to take a minute to explain the special budget meeting, and I think sometimes I've been doing this so long that I forget that it may need some additional explanation. So at the start of budget season, Nicole presents a budget calendar to the school committee. Because our budget is so detailed, we typically can't go through the entire budget in the regular business meetings that are scheduled. So we typically add meetings, which is why we would have had 3 meetings for 3 weeks in a row had we not canceled our regular business meeting last week. So this is a special meeting of where the school committee gets to hear directly from principals and directors who are presented their budget. The history behind that is when I first got to Burlington 100 years ago, the budget conversations would take place prior to coming to the school committee, and we would present a budget act guideline to the school committee, and the feedback that we got was there was too much agreement. So what we said that instead of having those conversations happen prior to bringing the budget to you, we would have those conversations in public with you. So the budget that was presented to you 2 meetings ago is basically an unfiltered, what everyone is asking for, given their programs and their responsibilities moving forward. So we didn't tell anyone to not present anything. You'll hear everything. Obviously, there is an existing guideline that we've established at 3.75, a 3.75% increase over last year's operating budget. With everything that everyone sort of contributed, what you'll begin hearing tonight is a budget that is actually at 7%. So we're probably close to double the increase as to what the guideline that was provided. So again, in numbers, we're roughly about $2 million over the guideline that we've discussed with town. The school committee, again, at this point, it's a working document, sometimes called a superintendent's budget. At the end of this process, you will all vote to support a budget or not support a budget, but you will support some budget moving forward. And at that point, it becomes the school committee budget that then gets presented to Ways and Means and then to town meeting for funding. So again, you can add, delete, you can, again, the decisions that we'll be debating will be about what we have in the budget moving forward. But again, the budget that we're working from now that you'll hear from directly is going to be sort of the unfiltered version of what's out there. Tonight isn't the only budget hearing, so we have budget topics again for our next business meeting, which is next week. Nicole, next week is special education, for instance, the Early Childhood Center, I think central office, and some other BECC, yeah, so the Early Childhood Center. So we have other aspects of the budget that are there. If you want to revisit any of the budget items that we discussed tonight, just please let us know, and we can do that moving forward. So again, the process is you're getting everything, and then again, Steve will have Ways and Means subcommittee meetings from now until the main Ways and Means meeting, and we'll sort of go through all the lines in the budget. With that, and while we're talking about budget, because last meeting that was canceled was the first business meeting of the month where we do our financial update, I just wanted Nicole to basically state that we'll share the financial update with you, but there are no red flags in the financial update, but you will see that moving forward. So you'll have that, and we can move forward. So with that being said, I'd like to start by having our schools present. You know, by regulation, you all need to approve a school improvement plan annually. Those school improvement plans should be aligned with the district improvement plan, which you've already approved. So what you'll be hearing tonight from each level, elementary, middle, and high school, will be their planning for success document, their 3-year plan, what they're focusing, and then they'll get into their budget request that supports that plan. So with that, I'd like to invite the elementary principals up. Okay. And that's later in the, okay. And then Nicole just reminded me that we will need a capital warrant vote tonight because the deadline for articles is Friday. So, again, welcome. I'd like to, obviously, you all know everyone, but Nicole McDonald from Francis Wyman, Pat English-Sand from Memorial, David Rosenblatt from Fox Hill, and John Lyons from Pine Glen. And thank you all for coming out tonight and presenting your school improvement plan and your budget requests for next year.
And looking at our budget requests for positions and things of that nature, we refer largely to the Planning for Success document. And to start us off in developing strategic objectives for that, we went to our core values, our district core values. And our district core values are developing all students' potential for excellence, providing a program study that has the same academic objectives for all students, ensuring an educational environment reflective and sensitivity to students' differing styles and intellectual development, and creating a learning environment that values human differences, fosters a sense of belonging, and promotes cultural proficiency. To kind of paraphrase these, it basically comes down to learning, equity, and thriving. And our objectives are largely focused on learning, equity, and thriving. And we really want to see learning being students making growth. We want to see equity where students get what they need. And thriving, seeing that just smile and that growth in a student. We're going to next move to our strategic objectives in the Planning for Success document.
Great, thanks, John. So I'm going to talk a little bit about strategic objective 1, which is learning, which will be empowering all students through a rigorous, dynamic, and relevant curriculum designed to include the academic, social, emotional, and psychological supports to ensure student growth and achievement. And our strategic initiatives for that are growth, tiered frameworks, digital literacy, computer science, data meetings, warm demander, and systematic alignment. So how is that going to look in all of our schools? We're going to be reviewing curriculum and Tier 1 core instruction in ELA and math to ensure that it's aligned with the Massachusetts frameworks. We're going to review response to intervention instructional practices and intervention and extension blocks to create meaningful learning experiences and increase student engagement. Additionally, we're going to determine the most effective use for our reading specialists and tutors and define those roles. We're going to make a recommitment to Responsive Classroom, which is our social emotional learning program with support, training, and coaching. We've had a lot of new people enter the district over the last few years to make sure, we want to make sure that everyone is up to speed with that. Further implementation of the Massachusetts digital literacy computer science frameworks. And then the outcomes that we're looking for are positive, engaging academic experiences and growth while supporting the social emotional well-being of all students. So I am now going to turn it over to Pat, who is going to talk about equity.
Thank you, David. Good evening. I'm going to talk about identified strategic objective 2, which falls under equity. And so the statement we've designed around what our mission is to educate and allow learners to be their authentic selves so they can attain high academic standards and outcomes by creating challenging learning environments where learners feel that they truly belong because they see representation of themselves in their curricula, in their teachers, and their support staff. And around to review the strategic initiatives, so district-wide initiatives, to help us align our practices, we're looking at the results of the district equity audit, how can we take that information and implement that information at our school level, looking at what are the equity initiatives that come out of that audit and what our schools are identifying as initiatives, looking at our pre-K to 12 shared vision of instruction, again, across the district, what are we looking at? What is our professional development plan? How are the goals of our professional development plan reflecting our values around equity? And some of the specific details of that are looking at and integrating equitable practices to reduce barriers to learning. That's something we do on a daily basis for certain. And then developing a culturally responsive environment that values the diversity of the student population, staff and families in our school, and that continues to be ongoing and will be ongoing work. Okay, Nicole?
Thanks, Pat. The third objective is thriving. That's a little bit more challenging to probably establish and prove, but our goal is to strengthen Burlington's culture through relationships between and among students, with families, with staff, and the Burlington community, ensuring the health, safety, security, and happiness of all learners and adults. So it's a pretty lofty objective. With that in mind, and obviously on the heels of COVID, strengthening those partnerships with family, community resources, developing the health and well-being of all of our staff, supporting the adults in our building, and obviously in addition to the students, that strategic initiative is critical. And you'll see as we talk about needing additional support staff, that's a primary area of need. So ultimately, we're looking to support students' social emotional needs. We're looking to expand outreach strategies to the community and to community support networks, expanding mentorship opportunities. This was new for this year's plan, mentorship opportunities with middle and high school students as well as community members. So really working to find ways to partner with our older mentor, big brother, big sister kind of student
partnerships, but using our Burlington community as well for resources. And then supporting the staff by integrating some wellness principles throughout the day and within our school systems to make sure that all the adults feel supported and healthy as well. So thriving is critical, and especially right now, even more critical than ever. So on that note, we wanted to talk about budget needs to support those initiatives. And for Francis Wyman, I'm not requesting any new positions at this time. I am looking to refill the math specialist position, which was vacated by Jeff Parra at the end of last year, and we never were able to refill it at that time. So I did want to extend a special thanks to Daryl Doiron and Carrie Fortunato, who stepped up this year to help support and add that academic resource in the absence of a math specialist. But I also want to take a moment on behalf of my principal colleagues to advocate for assistant principals. I do recognize that each year, through the past several years, they have all requested assistant principals, and I feel really strongly at this point, knowing how challenging things are at the schools, they're deferring to their open positions with other needy positions, but honestly, I cannot imagine running the school without an assistant principal at this point in time. So I'm grateful for Daryl and his skill, but there's just so much happening in the schools, and the social emotional needs, the learning, academic needs to try to close the gaps. Again, the list goes on and on. Community outreach, rigorous standards, curriculum reviews, teacher staff evaluation, ELL populations rising, social emotional needs becoming greater and greater. It's really challenging to do all of those things with just one leader. And so again, I know that they're not advocating on their behalf tonight, instead for other supporting positions, but I just really feel it's critical that we reconsider that as well. And then in addition to that, I just wanted to speak to the rising costs. We've been level funded for a few years now, and the cost of that is taking a toll. I did a few cost comparisons. Thank you to Julie for helping me with this, but you can see over 10 years, a case of paper went from $25 to $45. Just within the last 3 years, it's gone up $13. So you can imagine what getting a crate of paper in the building has cost in addition over the past 3 years. And curriculum-wise, our Envision Math program from 2018 was about $12,000 to order math materials for us for all students at Francis Wyman. And then this year, the budget is $17,463 to order those same math materials. So from $22 to $35 per student, level funded. So there's no more money in the budget to cover those costs, and that's just 2 items. So teachers are providing with their classroom budget all the materials for students. You know, we're grateful, and I know Burlington is very fortunate to not have parents have to provide supplies, and I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying that for teachers to get glue sticks and crayons and scissors, the cost of all of that material continues to rise, and the teacher's budget hasn't. So even though we have the same things we offer and we're looking for equitable access to these things, it's more and more challenging with the budget not rising from year to year. That's my 2 cents on advocating for our budget increase. Thank you.
Thank you.
The position we're asking for at Pine Glen is a math specialist. We are the one elementary school that doesn't have a math specialist. Nicole has a math specialist, and they've been filling that position this year, but it'd be great to have a math specialist at all the buildings. One of the things we really see is that this position could really help all our teachers with differing styles for students, as well as helping to promote a fostering a development and a community of learning, the cultural proficiency we need, and ultimately to see student growth and achievement. We could see this position as leading to very positive student outcomes for our students.
Thank you.
The position that I'm advocating for to be added to Memorial School is that of an adjustment counselor / social worker. In thinking about the needs of the school, the needs of our students, I referred to the climate survey data, which really indicated both at the student level a need in terms of having access to folks to speak to. Besides our school counselors, who are doing an amazing job, they do a lot of Tier 1, Tier 2 interventions. They provide, they do lessons in the classrooms, which is amazing. Kids get to see them in their classroom settings. They build relationships with kids who may not want to peek down to the guidance suite, but they see the school counselors throughout the building. And what we're finding is that through the survey that really indicated that children are concerned sometimes when students are having upsets in the classroom and maybe there's no one there to support them immediately. Our staff indicated the same concerns, needing more support around helping kids who are working on self-regulating. We look at, my second point is around what the national data shows. And we knew before COVID that the needs and mental health challenges for children, very young children, has been on the rise. I know that all school districts, this district in particular, has really looked at the social emotional needs of children. Certainly COVID just sort of exacerbated that. And so we're seeing that demand and that need, and it's as critical as teaching kids to read, right? To make sure they're feeling safe and they have the skills to navigate their school day. And for all children to feel like they can feel safe and they're building those skills at school. And to my last point, the earlier we get to children and the earlier, sort of like with reading, the earlier we get to kids and we help them build their coping skills, the better their long-term mental health outcomes are and the happier their life outcomes are. So that's sort of my appeal for an adjustment counselor at Memorial. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there's actually two positions that I'm advocating for. One is an assistant principal, which Nicole has already done a tremendous job advocating for me. But just to further add to that, so we are at about 430 students now. For the daily operations of Fox Hill, it would be a huge asset for us to have for supporting teachers, teacher evaluations, supporting students, supporting families. It has increasingly, as the year has gone on, become a need for Fox Hill. Like Pat had said, I'm also advocating for a adjustment counselor. We're seeing an increase in the need of behavioral supports. We were starting to before COVID. COVID significantly exacerbated that. We see a significant need of students needing individual counseling. Our guidance counselors have done a tremendous job, but they are worn very thin at this point. They are in classrooms, doing lessons. They are meeting with small groups. They're doing many, many different things. For individual counseling, it's become a necessity. So those are the two things that I am advocating for at Fox Hill. And that is our presentation for tonight. I wanted to take a moment, we all wanted to take a moment to thank all of you and Dr. Conti for your continued support over the years. We know that you have been extremely, extremely generous with all of us, extremely understanding with all of us and supportive. Thank you to all of our hardworking teachers. You make us all look good, so thank you all. And of course to the town of Burlington and families. Thank you very much for all of your support.
Thank you.
So again, Madam Chair, this is a combined, you heard the strategic plan, which would be sort of the school improvement plan as a first reading. You'll see that again next meeting for your approval as a second reading. The format should be very similar to the district format, so that shouldn't be anything new. And then the budget justifications that are there. Nicole, committee can look for specific line items for the elementary schools. So all of those requests you've built into the current budget. And so where can the committee members find that?
So starting on page 6 is Fox Hill with all of the detail of each line item, and then through page 27, Pine Glen begins. So starting on page 6 is all the detailed backup for elementary.
And again, just for the committee, the assistant principals are built in, and the adjustment counselors, specialists, everything that was discussed tonight is in the numbers that are in front of you.
Thank you.
Catherine, can I?
Yes, you.
Can I just ask one clarifying question? I think I saw a district-wide mental health ask, or I don't remember when, but there was individual adjustment counselors in that. This is included in that, right? I thought I saw Chrissy here. That, you posted a list, right? And these. It's not, I don't think it's on here. I mean, I have this.
No,
Sorry.
don't hide in the mask. No
But
hiding, Christine.
I think you had overall
But-
mental health needs for the
Yeah,
district.
just so everyone can hear you.
Yes, so both adjustment counselors were included in that. There was also a district-wide social worker adjustment counselor that is a shared position with Burlington Youth and Family Services. That's actually hopefully going through this year. We did receive grant funding through DESE to support that position for this fiscal year, and the hope would be we would support that moving forward as a shared bilingual position with Burlington Youth and Family Services.
Thank you. Anyone else need any clarification on anything?
I have questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Nicole, is the supplies request up from last year? You know, what we're planning on approving? Is it,
For
Elementaries.
elementary, no, they're all level funded with, I think, just a slight increase of like $100. But other than that, they're level funded.
so how many years in a row is this level funded?
COVID, like Dr. Conti, kind of lost track, but 3 or 4 maybe?
Yeah, I'd say 3 or 4 years.
Okay. A question from what you see in your buildings. Do you still see lingering deficiencies due to COVID, like academic? I know you see social emotional deficiencies. Do you also see academic deficiencies?
Personally, I would say yes. We're closing the gap. We're working towards that, and we're, again, very fortunate, Ms. Monaco, that we had as limited of a time away from school as we did for Burlington. So I think our gap is smaller, but there certainly are, especially in our younger grades, our 2nd, 3rd grade, where we're really seeing the continued impact. So the social emotional impact is probably greater, impacting the academic.
And what do you primarily use to try to fix those deficiencies?
For academics?
Yes.
So again, one of the issues we're having this year is with staffing. So the RTI Tier 1, Tier 2 supports with tutors is also deficient at the moment because none of us have enough tutors
Okay.
to maintain that consistency. So staffing, not that we don't have the budget to staff it, we just don't have the staff, we don't have the bodies. So that's impacting it. So slowly but surely, we're covering as much as we can. We're intensifying the interventions that we're using, all hands on deck type of thing. And it is working slowly. So it's going to take a little more time.
Okay, but you do need more support. How about counselors? How many counselors do each of you have?
Each of us have 2.
Two counselors.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that enough? Does it
Obviously not.
work?
They're
Does it work? Well, I know the
requesting-
adjustment council is a little bit different, but does it work numbers-wise?
That's one.
It's one of those situations where I think how the counselor position has grown in lots of ways. Can you hear me? The counseling position has grown in lots of ways, in lots of wonderful ways, right? There's lots of direct work within classrooms, building relationships with students. And simultaneous to that, we're seeing an increase with students' complex needs. And I think that what we try to do is make sure that our school counselors are doing Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports. So they're working closely in classrooms with teachers. They're doing small groups, lunch groups, really working hard to make sure they're meeting the needs of students. They work and develop 504 plans. The list of things that they cover is extensive. just to make sure, and I'm not even representing them well in terms of the complexity of what they do, the time they spend working very closely with families, identifying resources for families. And the reason I know I can speak for myself, but probably my colleagues as well are sort of requesting further assistance is we're looking at where our needs are is we are often pulled away from all those really important processes and supports that we provide teachers in Tier 1 and Tier 2 and all the work we do, because those teachers are pulled away for sort of more high demand situations with Tier 3 students that are very time consuming in terms of making sure we're meeting the needs of the students, we're supporting them, we're supporting families, getting resources and things like that. So they're being pulled away from the many tasks that they're already on their plate. So, and they don't complain about it. They certainly embrace it, feel very supported by the district, but also are feeling a sense of we're not able to get to everyone, and what do we do? So they're looking for ways for us to help them figure out ways to support all students. And making sure, to my point about getting to students early and developing those coping skills, then we really do have more impact on students. Again, we're seeing the impact of the social emotional needs of students on the academics, where we're well-resourced in the district with a focus on developing our academic skills. Kids can't have access to learning unless we're making sure they're building their social emotional skills simultaneous.
Like you're saying, Pat, some of just the expertise of our counselors has just been fantastic in giving preventative strategies for students to develop, so that if something comes up in the curriculum that triggers a response, they'll have strategies so that they can continue to engage and stay in the classroom. So what outcome of having such great counselors has been more time on learning, more time with students in the classroom learning, less time having to go out and debrief. And these strategies that we're developing with students at this age is going to see them through high school and years to come.
Okay, so one last thing I wanted to ask Mrs. Conceition, if you would explain for some of the people watching the difference between a counselor and an adjustment counselor.
Sure. So most school districts have what used to be called guidance counselors, school counselors, that really provide that Tier 1 social emotional support for all students. So they are assigned in the elementary schools by grade levels. They're assigned in the middle school by grade level as well, and then in the high school alphabetically. And those are the counselors who do provide the in-classroom lesson, the push-in support to teachers, the check-ins with students, and what was so eloquently just spoken is some of that is being pushed aside because there is a lot of crisis going on. A school adjustment counselor or social worker has a more clinical lens, so they would be providing more one-on-one counseling. They'd be running short-term intervention groups. We do run groups right now. They're social lunch bunch groups, but we are finding that mental health concerns and diagnoses are appearing in elementary age school children. So some of the evidence-based groups that are already happening in our middle school and our high school to target anxiety and depression, and we're hopefully expanding that, could be beneficial and would be beneficial in our elementary schools as well. So we'd be looking to have the school adjustment counselor or school social worker, it's kind of interchangeable name, run some more evidence-based clinical groups and provide some in-school clinical counseling to students.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And I just had one other question. I know looking for, different ways to support our students. And do you need reading specialists as well? I know that, some neighboring schools, they have reading specialists, and just wanted to kind of find out from your opinion how you feel about that.
All have two? You have one. So we all have two reading specialists who are highly trained and talented and offer a lot. So again, almost like the guidance counselors, that has to do more and more. What I think is something we would want to look at is coaching, having them have an opportunity to do more coaching of staff members to provide more of the best practice reading, make sure we're shoring up that reading.
Different programs possibly get exposed to so they can teach the different options that are out there. That's kind of what I was getting at, because I knew you had the people, but do you feel that additional training is needed to support them? Okay.
And I think we need that, honestly, across the board, even with the social emotional. I mean, we have responsive classroom that we've all been trained in and are using, but we need additional training to increase our levels of support with trauma training, managing these higher profile needs of students, not just guidance counselors, but in the classrooms. I mean, everybody's faced with having to manage those greater challenges. So we need more time, as we always do, and additional opportunities for intensive training to help support teachers, special ed teachers, ELL teachers, guidance counselors. People are working hard, working exceptionally hard. It is not an easy job.
No, it's not, and thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
One quick one.
Ms. Monaco?
I think Catherine, if I'm reading her right, I think she was talking about programming like LIPS, Linda Mood Bell, Wilson. And I wonder if you think there is a need. Just a yes or no.
There's always a need.
Thank you. That was the right answer.
And you are correct. Exactly.
You heard that, right?
Ms. Simon?
I just want to point out for the next people speaking, we can hear you very well, but the microphones make it so that people who are listening online can hear as well. So if you could try to make sure you speak into not just you folks, and make sure the green light is on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, want to thank elementary principals. Thank you again and your staff. I think, Nicole, you said it best. Everyone is working incredibly hard, so please pass on our gratitude. Again, the committee will be seeing the elementary school improvement plan at the next meeting for a second reading, and you have the budget details on the pages that Nicole stated, I think page 6 through 27 in your budget document. Mr. Moran, I think you're getting a flavor for the needs of our students and how we're going to be presenting to Ways and Means, the subcommittee. So again, thank you all for coming out tonight, and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Moran, have you fertilized the money tree?
All right. And I think it's Marshall Simons Middle School that's
Yes.
next.
Madam Chair, I'd like to invite up Dr. Carrie Purchase. Joined by Cheryl Mantilla and Peniota Athanalis, Dr. Peniota Athanalis, sorry, assistant principal. So Dr. Purchase, thank you. And with that, again, same format. You'll hear the school improvement plan initially, followed by the budget requests afterwards. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us, and I'm not sure that I can do as well a job as our elementary colleagues did. So I feel like they set the bar kind of high to start this night, but they certainly articulated a lot of the challenges that we're seeing as well. So to start off, so we also started off by looking at our Planning for Success document with revisiting our mission and vision statement, which we have shared here. I think that the important piece is that we're really looking at all children and really providing different opportunities in making sure that all students have access to opportunities. So when we started to plan for this, and I have to say that this is, we had developed our Planning for Success document in 2020, but I don't believe that we ever presented it to the school committee, and we never voted on it because I think we were up, on deck when the world shut down. So I want to first acknowledge that a lot of work went into that plan 3 years ago, and we used a lot of the input to really kind of set the stage for this current plan. And despite living through a pandemic, I just need to give a shout out to everyone at Marshall Simons Middle School for making incredible strides. So our teaching staff, our support staff, everyone, I'm really, as we were assessing where we were and kind of saying, okay, where do we need to go? It was amazing how much progress we were able to make in certain areas, despite the circumstances. So I want to just give a shout out to everyone. Okay, thanks, Bob. So we're going to start off with, and as we talk about, we're not going to go into every single initiative, and certainly you have the Planning for Success document. If you have specific questions, we're happy to answer them. But we're really going to start off by providing a framework and looking at the multi-tiered system of support, which is it is out there to really kind of, and again, it's a framework. It's not a program. It's not something that, you implement and check a box and done. It really meant to be a process of assessing and looking at the systems of a school to make sure that they're all working together. And so when we started our Planning for Success document, we've been having a number of conversations in silos for my tenure here. We've talked about special education and making sure that we're providing the best support to students. We've talked about our schedule. We've talked about the BEAM program. And in each one of these conversations, they've been kind of in absence of the systems that are needed to support that work and the really the need to start with a strong tier one and making sure there's a system. So in this diagram, you can see that there are 3 drivers on the outside. There's the competency driver, which is talking about staff recruitment, selection, onboarding, PD and coaching, feedback and evaluation. The leadership drivers, which are shared responsibility and collaboration, resource allocation, student family community engagement. And then the implementation drivers, which is the tiered continuum of evidence-based interventions and supports, implementation fidelity, database decision-making, and high-quality curriculum and instruction. And that, when you start to look at the framework and start to implement the framework, it really starts with those outside pieces and then moving in. So our plan is really connected to further developing our multi-tiered system of supports. It's really about assessing the good work that we're doing and building on those strengths so that we're better able to meet the needs of all students. I don't know if either of you want to add to? No? Okay, thank you. So as our elementary colleagues, our Planning for Success document is organized as the district Planning for Success document is around learning, equity, and thriving. So our first strategic objective is learning, and that is really where we're going to focus our efforts. And as our colleagues, they stole a lot of our thunder, but as they shared, I think that it really needs to start with students feeling a sense of belonging, feeling safe in school, feeling supported, relationships. If those things are absent, then they're not able to learn in terms of or access the high quality curriculum that you can be delivering. So again, when we're using this, we're looking at learning. It was really hard to separate out all of our initiatives into these 3 categories because they're so intertwined as well. But strategic, we're looking at the curricula, what we're teaching to students, making sure that it is aligned with the standards, that they have equitable access, that we are making sure that our instruction is aligned with their needs, and that it's culturally sustaining and linguistically responsive. The schedule is part of this conversation, which we're continuing to look at our schedule, but and the scheduling committee continues to meet. But we also really need to look at the needs of what's happening in the school to make sure that the structure of the school day, again, the system, really matches those needs. So focusing on a culture of continuous improvement in Marshall-Simons Middle School has a long tradition of excellence, and there's also a need to continue to identify, again, what's working, what's not, and how do we improve. That doesn't mean start over. It doesn't mean what we're doing is not good. It's identifying what we could do differently to better support the students that are sitting in front of us now, because the students sitting in front of us now are different than the students that were sitting in front of us 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 25 years ago. And then provide grade level appropriate technology experiences aligned with the DLCS standards from the state. Okay. You want me to keep going? Okay. So I think that when it comes to equity, and we did do a feedback session with our faculty and staff and showed them a draft plan and asked. And one of the questions I got, or we got when we shared that with our faculty was whose responsibility is equity and equity work. And I believe we all firmly believe that equity work is everyone's responsibility, and it should be embedded in everything that we do. So yes, it is a separate strategic objective here, but it is something that when we're talking about curriculum, having access and opportunities to curriculum, that's equity work. So that's something that's really, again, that I'll continue, that I believe in, that we believe in, that we'll continue to promote. And so this is, again, connected to the learning pieces, but making sure that there's access, making sure that our teachers are continuing to understand culturally responsive teaching practices, and that we're continuing to grow in that area, and that we are reinforcing the professional development and continuing those conversations. Because, again, going back to that, if we were to think going back to that diagram, those need to be in place in order to support teaching and learning within the school building. Okay, I'll stop talking. You get a break.
So the next piece is the thriving piece, and I love talking about this one. It's really about inspiring and empowering our students.
Cheryl,
Yes,
welcome.
thank you.
This is Cheryl Mantilla. She is a longtime math teacher at Marshall Simons Middle School, exceptional math teacher, and has joined the dark side now as a part of the leadership team at the middle school. So this is your first time presenting to the school committee, so welcome.
Thank you. So the thriving piece, I love this because it really is about inspiring and empowering our students. I love middle school students. We love middle school students. It's such a challenging age, but there's also so much potential in there. There's the academic piece, the social emotional learning piece. There's just so much to them, and we just love working with them. So with this piece, we talked a little bit about the tiers, the tier 1, the tier 2, and the tier 3. The tier 1 is really about reaching all students, and there's a few ways we do that, from the culture piece of a school and the thriving piece. And one of those ways is just sort of our values, living our values day in and day out. So we've got pride, so that's the perseverance, the respect, the integrity, the diversity, and the empathy. And we also have 2 big rules at the school that the students hopefully can repeat to you, which is show respect and do your job. And we talk about that in the cafeteria, we talk about it in classrooms, we talk about it in school-wide assemblies. We're really trying to ingrain that in students. And one of the things that I just saw the other day when students were transitioning, so you had about 850 students kind of moving on to their next class, and 8th graders were coming down the stairs to go to the gym, and 6th graders were kind of coming back to go to their team courses, and there was a little 6th grade kiddo who I think was getting a little kind of lost in the shuffle, and one of our 8th grade boys was really kind of coming down the stairs and escorting him and guiding him through. And not doing it because he saw me there, because quite honestly, he didn't. I kind of blend in a little bit. And that, to me, sort of epitomized what we're trying to do from a Tier 1 perspective about establishing culture and looking out for each other and respecting each other and respecting ourselves. Another way we look at culture from a Tier 1 perspective also ties into the social emotional learning pieces. So we've got our advisory program that we implemented a few years ago. And one of our big goals this year is to look at that program and really sort of reevaluate what's working, what do we want to change. Right now, we do a once a week, 25-minute session. So we're looking at, does that still work? Do we want to tweak it? Do we want to think about a daily with a shorter duration each day? We want to look at, well, what's the curriculum we're doing in 6th grade versus 8th grade? Does it make sense? So that's one of our big goals this year. And then another big goal is the sort of behavior and discipline, please. Setting high expectations for all students, and also kind of thinking about, are we looking at discipline with the lens of equity?
and really restorative practices, we're incorporating that into everything. So yes, we incorporate the restorative piece into discipline, but we also are looking at how do we incorporate that into our advisory classes. You know, an example of restorative in the discipline piece would be, okay, so a student made a mistake. It's not about, okay, here's your detention, here's your punishment. It's more about, okay, if you do have a detention, well, what are we doing in that detention? You know, are we writing apology letters? Are we talking about why did you do this? And are we really getting to the root cause of why there might be an inappropriate behavior or a negative coping skill? And are we getting to that root cause and then fixing it so that students are making better choices going forward? So.
So the final strategic objective is the finance and facilities portion. And you know, I think that we have a newer building, which we're grateful for. It's maintained well, but as you'll see in a couple slides, we are, you know, growing and busting out of the seams. So there are opportunities and needs to retrofit the existing building, and whether that's working with the facilities department to divide out some space, or we have a shortage of desks, so we need to look at, you know, kind of making sure that we have enough seats for all of the students that we have as well. So that this is more of an adaptive piece. It's not, you know, we're not necessarily looking at, you know, big ticket capital improvement items, but there is a need to look at our furniture and fixture and start to identify where we need to bolster that now that it's a little older as well.
Again, Dr. Purchase, just interjecting, the committee visited Marshall Simons and saw that not only are they expanding their enrollment for their existing programs, they're also welcoming new programs that are growing up from the elementary school. So you saw our developmental skills classroom students who are moving now into the middle school, and you also saw a lab collaborative classroom that is also, the students are aging up into the middle school. So again, Dr. Purchase, I want to thank you for obviously running your existing programs, but thank you for being so welcoming to those new programs as well.
Of course. Thank you. It's actually, it's a privilege to have students in our building and to be able to educate them in their home community. So I appreciate the thanks, but I think that we would all argue that it brings a lot of sunshine into all of our lives. And really, you know, speaking to what Ms. Mantilla was speaking about in terms of community and building a sense of inclusion and belonging for students as well. So moving on to the budget section, and again, happy to answer any specific questions as we dig into the how are we going to make all of this work. I do, you know, want to say is because we are talking about tiered support in the social emotional world. We do have some academic support. Ms. Monaco, I'm going to preview your question. We are seeing gaps in learning, and that's going to. Sorry, I don't want to. They stole my thunder. I have to steal someone's thunder. So we are seeing that, and I think that again, when we look at those systems that are in place, we do have some tier 2 supports. We do have some opportunities for that, but we don't have the infrastructure in terms of a systems that exist in some other levels. So that's something that we need to also think about as we're seeing that. So it's not just about levels and tiers, it's about how we're working together to support students within those systems. So just to provide a snapshot of our enrollment, and we did a little bit of a historical dive. This started in my first year, 2018, 2019. We were at 787 students. We had a little bit of a dip, and you can see now we have 826 students. Next year, we're projected at 862 students, and 2 years from now, we have we're projected at 874 students. Of course, that's subject to change, but that's based on our current enrollment in the younger grades. That is a significant increase in the number of students. Add in the significant increase in the complexity of their needs as well. Up to this point, we felt very supported by the committee, and where we've asked for a position here or a position there, we've gotten the support. We haven't gotten everything, but that's okay. I think that I think that we also, through our schedule change, through efficiencies in scheduling, we really maximized the staff that existing staff that we had in terms of human resources and the ability to meet needs of students. I am sitting here today saying that we've hit max capacity in certain areas, and that we do have some personnel requests around enrollment needs. So not nice to haves, but really need to haves as we, and you'll have an important decision to look at all of the requests and make those determinations. So again, we see that we have about 47 more students overall. We also are projecting at least 22 additional. That's a net change. So our 8th graders going up to the high school and a bigger class coming in, we're expecting 22 more students who are receiving services through special education. We have typically in a given year, we have students that move in and we welcome them. And we also have students that move in that are receiving special education services. So as we are efficient in our special education servicing in terms of scheduling and things, when families move in, sometimes that then creates another complexity in terms of how we're going to meet those needs. We've been fortunate that we've had a little flexibility in some of what we've done, but where we're kind of, again, going to this max capacity piece, we're not going to have as much flexibility. And then next year, we're anticipating approximately 48 English learners in our schools as well. That is, indicative of kind of the increase that we're seeing in the district. I would also say that in addition to just the numbers, we're also seeing a more complexity in our English learners. We're seeing more newcomers, students that are kind of at the earlier levels of proficiency in their English, and their needs are more. At the middle school, we're educating those students in grade level classes. And in order to set those students up for success, we need to make sure that we're supporting them in those classes as well. And then also, again, going back to that systems talk, supporting our teachers to meet more diverse needs, regardless, whether those are language needs, special education needs, or otherwise. So our FTE requests, and I've sorted them out, and I know it's hard to see on the projector, I apologize. But we're requesting, and I should, before I jump into that, we're also, we're expanding the DSC into 7th grade next year. So we have 1 classroom, we'll have 2 classrooms. I know that was a separate request through special education. But those 22 students that we're seeing, we're asking for 2 special educators. Again, I'm going to ask for the moon and, shoot for the stars and land on the moon. I'm mixing that up. I definitely, we need at least 1. We're not going to be able to schedule the building if we don't have additional special educators. The school adjustment counselor, again, we are seeing, when folks came and visited us the other day, I advocated for, additional supports, and the committee has been wonderful with that. But the needs of our students, we are in an adolescent mental health crisis. So providing additional Tier 1 support at the elementary level, helping build skills, that's important. But we're doing the same, and the complexity of our students who are struggling is immense. So it is a real need. When we're talking about special education, again, in addition to teachers who are working directly with students, we also have the compliance piece of things, which includes annual meetings, reevaluations. It's a lot. We currently have 1.4 team chairs in our building. I will say it's actually more like 1.6 because we do have a team chair from one of the elementary schools that comes over once a week and helps with meetings as well. And so we are requesting to go to 2 full-time team chairs. Currently, our split position is a team chair. It's 0.4 team chair, 0.6 school psychologist. We're asking for an additional 0.4, so increasing the 0.6. So we're asking for, it's 2 positions, 1 position, but it would be, I'm going to stop there because I'm confusing myself. But, and I'm sorry? No math, not at 7 o'clock at night. So we're requesting an additional 0.5 reading teacher. We currently have this role, and we'd like to maintain that and continue it. We have a reading strategies class where we're providing almost to every sixth grade student, they get an additional 2 days of reading instruction. So in order to increase our supports and to do that, having the second person is really helpful. And then currently, last year we had a retirement, and we replaced that retirement with a part-time teacher. With the increased enrollment in the World Language Department, we are asking to go back to the 1.0 position for world language, mostly Spanish. And then finally, the ELL instructional assistant. Again, as we have students who are coming in are being fully included, to make sure that they have that support in the classroom is really important. An additional special education instructional assistants to fulfill service delivery. And then finally, clerical support, a part-time position to help with morning attendance, more students. We have 3 fantastic admins that are great, but they're at max capacity as well, so that would just be a little bit of a pressure relief for them. And then finally, these are the nice-to-haves. I would argue that they're the need-to-haves as well, but we have the addition of an instructional coach this year who has been a fantastic addition, is really supporting teachers and getting in there and having, and supporting that, again, that system and structure. And so we're asking for an additional instructional coach with a STEM focus. And then we're also asking for an additional math coach that would be more providing services to students and supporting student learning. So more of a a student-facing role as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and then the last slide, which we added, was just around operating budget and just some budget considerations, because we did go a little bit over level funded, and that was related to our Open Sci Ed grant, which has been supporting the implementation of our new science curriculum over the past few years. We're at the end of that, and we need to continue to support that implementation. Our Big Ideas math curriculum is the initial purchase of that curriculum. It happened, I believe, it was 17-18. And it was a 6-year contract. So we're at the end of that. So we need to take care of the digital license at least for next year, if not the consumables, which is quite a considerable cost. And so that'll be something even for future conversations that we need to think about. And then copy machines. The paper's more expensive, but our copy machines were 10 and 12 years old at this point, so we needed to begin. So we started this year with refreshing our machines. We're moving to leases, so that's a line item as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And anyone have any other questions or comments? I know I have one, but I'm going to let everyone else go first.
Thank you for presenting, and as was true with the elementary, all of these positions are valuable, and I hope we can fund them all. So, but question in terms of the budget, when the last schedule, so is the replaceables for, now you took the thing down, I didn't see it. I'm going to lose.
Second last slide.
Back up?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had a question on that, too.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. Let's see. Yeah.
On the
So-
positions or the operating budget?
So the open science ed, this one, for me,
Okay.
that was, the open science ed, the big idea math, are those things that are in the budget that we have in front of us?
So the Open Sci Ed is an increase in the science materials line. So yes, that is there. The Big Ideas math, there is a placeholder in the budget. When we submitted the budget, I kind of pulled a number out because I realized as we were preparing it that we were going to have that cost, and I've since got a quote from the publisher. So that is, again, there's kind of 2 levels of that quote. There's one that's for the digital license only for a year, and then there's one for the digital license and for the consumable. And we are working with teachers to identify, is the consumable necessary? Because everything is part of that digital resource. It will be a conversation that needs to happen probably early next year about what the plan is going forward, because my understanding is the version of Big Ideas Math that was purchased towards the end of its shelf life, for lack of a better description, and they're no longer going to be supporting it. So there's that is going to be a considerable budget discussion item to talk about. and one that I would really advocate for us to take a look at through a curriculum review process before making that decision. So I think that that's something that we'll need to work with Dr. Chen on as well.
And is the lease for the new copiers in this budget that we have in front of us?
Yes. So it's the leases for this year, which is a 3-year, and then the other copiers that we're phasing out for next year as well should be there.
Anyone else? I just, on this slide.
Yeah.
I don't want to assume anything, but is this your order of preference, most of importance, or no?
I will say that it's not prioritized by preference.
Okay.
And certainly I could, we could look back. I will say that I think that there are some that are more critical than others.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we can prioritize that and get it to you to help make those decisions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
One more question from Ms. Monaco?
Well, who said it was one?
Okay, enough.
I really enjoyed visiting the school, and I especially enjoyed visiting the students in the DSC program and the lab. I just wanted you to know that for me was really fun. I enjoyed it. Now, my one question is this. You said you have 48 English learners?
That's projected for next year.
Okay.
Right now, we're in the mid-30s, so I believe it's an 11, we'll say 37, I believe it's an 11, we're expecting an 11 student increase.
Is there a ratio that is mandatory for students to staff?
There's not a ratio. I think that it's service time, so direct service. So students who have higher levels of need, and Ms. Lamprey will save me if I mess up, students who have higher levels of need require more direct service. So those students are getting at least an ELA portion, so their language, and then they're also getting support from that. So their contact time. So I mean, currently, students with higher proficiency have an ELL class once a day.
Okay.
And then newcomers will have ELL kind of twice a day, one covering kind of the English content and the skills.
So how many staff members do you have working with the English learners?
We currently have 2 full-time teachers that are working. We also have a tutor position that went unfilled this year, much like the elementary school. So we're able to provide direct instruction. Where we're challenged a little bit is providing support in the content areas. So whether that's in do you want to? Oh, no, you're just agreeing, okay. So that's where it's challenging. So, for example, and we just had a meeting with Mrs. Whitcomb at the high school, Ms. Northrup at the high school talking about math. Our students, our English learners are going into grade level math classes, and some of our students are coming with interrupted education. So they're coming in at much lower levels in math. Now, it's important that they're exposed and have access to grade level math. We don't want to not have them there, and they also need additional support. So having someone in the classroom or available to support that them would be key.
I would think that the language barrier would be tough in a math class as well as any other class. So that sounds to me like an area where maybe we need to think about how to properly or better staff
Absolutely.
those youngsters.
Yep, go ahead.
It's,
There you go.
is that working?
Yeah, you need to pull it closer.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Oh,
Just
good.
just pull it forward.
Right. So,
Welcome.
thank you.
This is Dr. Penny O'Rathanalis, so again, her first
Hi.
time presenting
Hi.
in front of the school committee, so welcome.
Thanks. So I just wanted to kind of go back to those additional positions to support student learning.
Right.
Where it's, like you were saying, it seems like nice to haves, but they're, need to haves because, you have your regular content area teachers who have every different type of learner in front of them. So to be able to have a math coach push in and give support right then and there, or, a STEM coach to be able to work with them on planning and things like that, is something that really, it can go very far. There's a big impact. So just wanted to add
And
that.
I think you need multilingual people, too.
One more question. And you had mentioned there was one tutor position that was unfilled. Can you explain why it was unfilled, or I just want to understand?
Because nobody applied.
That's what I wanted to, that's what I'm getting at. Exactly.
I think that the especially in those support roles, we're not seeing the same number of applicants as we've previously seen. I think that that's what some of our elementary colleagues were talking about as well. So we are, whether it's, subs, whether it's tutors, it's not, the applicant pool isn't there. I'll also say that when you look at the structures around tutors that are at the elementary schools and then the number of tutors that we have at the middle school, I've not done the analysis, but the ratio isn't there as well. And I'm not necessarily advocating for more tutors, which tend to be a tier 2 or above. I'm advocating for let's get the support to the teachers in the tier 1 so that we can strengthen that, so that we can continue to support all students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Conti.
Again, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And as with the elementary group, I know that all the educators and support staff are working incredibly hard, so thank you. I wanted to make sure, again, I welcome Ms. Mantilla and Dr. Athanalis again to the school committee. I think the school committee, as you frame this conversation, I would say that none of these positions are nice to have. I think sometimes we go through thinking about schools differently. So for a long time, again, we thought of Fox Hill to be more sized differently than it is, and it's quickly approaching the size of Francis Wyman. I would say that the middle school is going to be close to the high school enrollment in the next coming years. So these positions are not they're not luxuries, they are necessities to make the schedule work. There's not as many bodies as you think because Dr. Purchase has been working with some partial positions, and what we're really asking for is to make some of those positions whole. So the situation where we have a part-time team chair who's also a part-time school psychologist is much more difficult to schedule than if she had a full-time school psychologist and a full-time team chair. So I think what we're doing is making positions whole to assist with scheduling, because people can't be two places at once, no matter how talented that they are. So please, in your thinking, think of the middle school more like staffing in terms of the high school, because that's really where it is. And the last thing I'd say, and Dr. Purchase, I know you're going to comment at the end, but what has happened historically, and I hope it would be continued to be honored if the school committee would sort of think this way and advocate, is positions that were needed because of enrollment increases were always considered outside of the guideline. And I would say a lot of the middle school positions are required because of enrollment increases and really shouldn't, from my perspective, impact us on the guideline that exists. So please think of these positions as necessary to running the middle school and having the schedule actually work. So, Ms. Purchase, I just want to make sure
No,
that.
I think you did a great job of summarizing it, and I appreciate that. I think the only thing that I wanted to, the last thing I wanted to say around the special education piece is that we do have, we are a fully inclusive model as much as we can. We do have programs that educate students outside of the regular education classroom, and the needs of the learners are different than they were when I got here. Just, in just a 5-year piece, and our team chairs aren't able to necessarily work and do the instructional leadership piece as well, because they're doing the compliance piece. So I just want to, we're seeing students with different needs that in the past would not have been educated in the regular education. And again, they should be. I want to be very clear. But we also need to support our teachers in meeting those diverse needs. And so I think that that's something that we need to consider. And my last plug is that we're looking at keeping more students educated in their community. And that comes with a cost as well. So, and I think it's a cost that's worth it. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Purchase, thank you.
All right. The next next group up will be BHS.
Black's not in too big a hurry.
Oh, you're standalone?
Good evening. Sorry, I didn't get the memo of bringing the team, so I'm going to go solo here. Also didn't get the memo about the slides, so I apologize for that in advance. You'll have to bear with me. I just wanted to say good evening and thank you. It was good seeing a lot of you at the high school last week. And Dr. Conti, I wanted to say it was terrific to meet Dr. Chen in my short time Thursday and Friday. Getting to meet her already seems like she's going to add a lot of value to a lot of the things that have been discussed from my colleagues from the elementary and middle school, and was already kind of thinking about ways to improve things and add value in a lot of different areas. So look forward to her coming on board in July. So I'll start off with the high school's planning for success. The core objectives are the same as the elementary and middle school, which all trickle down from the district plan: learning, equity, thriving, and facilities in operation. I'm not going to read through every item in each objective, but I'll try to highlight one or two things within each one that we've either already been working on and continue to do so, or I feel just are important updates for you all to hear at this point in time. So the first one, the learning, is the work that the high school has done around the portrait of the graduate, which a lot of you might know is part of our ongoing school improvement efforts and accreditation work with NEASC. And I'd like to thank, we do have a small steering committee at the high school that has been working on this over the last couple of years. Shannon Janovitz, Emily Balarczyk, Michael Milton, Jessica Nedishin, Krista Anderson, Mojda Kazem, Alex Allaire, and Katie Sullivan. So I just wanted to give a bit of gratitude for them for the extra effort that they have put in to lead a lot of this work. Briefly, the portrait of the graduate is a vision that outlines the high schools, and really it should end up enveloping the whole community's expectation for students and what they'll be able to do, skills that they'll have prior to graduation, including transferable skills, understandings, and mindsets. The vision is essential to our improvement efforts and critical, again, to our ongoing accreditation with NEASC. The faculty at the high school recently completed a year-long reflection process to identify and prioritize the skills, domains, and performance outcomes that we believe will best support student success after graduation. As part of that process, we developed and piloted a grade 9 skills book this year to build consistency in language and expectations across different disciplines, prompt conversations about teaching practices that support student learning in the different priority areas. The current step that we're in right now is to gather feedback from families, students, and community members. So I do have copies of the general outline I will leave with you that you could look at. Families have until the 24th of March to submit feedback, and then based upon that feedback, we will make some revisions. It'll go out to a final vote to the faculty, and then back to you all as kind of a formal process. I'm not sure if it's something you'll need to vote on or not, but certainly that final step will be approval from this committee and Dr. Conti about final implementation. And one of the budget positions I am requesting really ties into and is a real critical aspect to the execution of this plan moving forward after this year. The second strategic objective is equity, and one of the main components of this that the high school has prioritized this year is professional development and teachers kind of assessing and evaluating the skills and strategies that they currently have in their classrooms around culturally responsive teaching. And just kind of briefly, responsive teaching is a research-based approach to teaching. It connects students' cultures, languages, and life experiences to what they learn in school. And these connections help students access rigorous curriculums and develop higher-level academic skills. And that also includes evaluating our different programs and services that we offer to students. So we did work with the middle school this year. We partnered with the Highlander Institute. And I know it wasn't, I know teachers are at different levels of competency and proficiency with these types of things. So for some, it was not enough. For some, it was too much. But we, both the middle school and the high school, felt it was important to have a baseline and get everybody on the same page. So that work started this year, and we're hopeful that we have to evaluate the particular organization, but that the whole district will have a plan around that work moving forward. Another thing that the high school staff did and is going to continue is we took the CRIOP tool, which is the Culturally Responsive Instruction Observation Protocols this year, which we think are going to be the new regulatory standards for the Department of Education around the teacher evaluation system. So one of the goals that all of our high school staff have this year is to familiarize themselves with the CRIOP tool, think about things that they're already doing that align with those different standards, whether it's classroom instruction, assessment practices, family outreach, et cetera, to look at the different aspects of the CRIOP and how it aligns with things that they're already doing, and to identify those different areas and the crossovers and the crosswalk between the CRIOP and the current grade 8 that we have, which are the 8 identified standards or priority areas that teachers are asked to look at and are evaluated on each school year. The next one is thriving, and I think thriving is probably one of the more difficult ones to define because it looks like a lot of different things to a lot of people, but some of the key things under this is to engage in a curriculum review process and to continually to review our curriculum to make sure it's current and meets the needs of students. Continue different positive behavioral intervention supports such as student recognition programs. We implemented a Caught You Doing Something Good this year where teachers can recognize students for various things that they do that they want to highlight. Could be helping another student, could be going above and beyond in the classroom, and they can get a little token and turn it in for something from one of the administrators, T-shirts, hats, water bottles, things like that. We have implemented something called the Inspiration Awards. Monthly, we highlight students and staff. It's a nomination process. Community members, families, students and staff can nominate other people, and we recognize people for exemplifying our core values. We try to nominate and recognize 3 staff and 3 students every month. And then continuing and maintaining essential programming like Keys to Literacy, landmark trainings. I mentioned culturally responsive teaching, different initiatives and things like that that are essential to effective teaching practices for teachers and students. The last one is finance and operations. Obviously, you heard about the MSBA approval. You all were in the building last Friday. I think Dr. Conti and I had a chance to highlight a lot of different areas that we really could focus on to improve the high school. But under that, I view that as kind of the low-hanging fruit in terms of where our focus is, but it tends to occupy a lot of our time sometimes, but maintaining the budget. And one area that we have tried to focus on at the high school is school safety. And with the committee support, we've been able to add cameras at the high school this past summer. Several years ago, we had that secured vestibule built and designed in the front entrance. And we continue to try to make sure that the building is obviously a safe and secure place for students and staff when they're here. So I don't know if there are any questions about that before I move on to the budget.
Budget it is.
You had questions for everybody else. That's
We just visited, Mark.
We just spent a day with you.
So for the budget, my colleagues did mention the level funding budget. While not as big of a challenge at the high school, there was a slight increase in the high school budget for different line items, and those are because of rising costs around different vendors that we use, online learning programs where the costs have increased, other goods and services where prices have increased. I did increase several line items, but I think it was 8% or so. I think in general everything else was able to be level funded. There's two. One kind of programmatic request that The amount of staff in it really is not defined yet, and we did talk about this last Friday. But requesting an expansion to our alternative educational opportunities for students, specifically our non-traditional programming, the Simon Youth Academy. It used to be the Evening Academy at Burlington High School. We partnered with Simon Youth Foundation many years ago, and they've been a great partner for us. This current academy, and they're here at the high school now tonight, they provide a hands-on, discussion-based, and interactive approach to the high school curriculum, offer students an opportunity to earn their high school diploma by attending classes in the evening and maintaining a job for 25 hours a week at minimum. Currently, it meets Monday through Fridays from 5:15 to 8:15 here at the high school, but we'd be looking to expand the offerings for these students as their needs changed. Not all of them. Some of them have evening work opportunities. Some of them have the needs to access different services during the school day or the hours of the school day. In addition to the expansion of this alternative program, I am requesting the addition of a newcomer academy at the high school. It would all be under the same umbrella to start. And a newcomer academy, which could be a 1- or 2-year program, would serve newly arrived immigrant and refugee students with a limited and interrupted formal education. This newcomer academy would provide instructional programs that promote the rapid acquisition of the English language, develop native language skills, orientate youth to the American culture, all while offering students and families a caring and supportive environment to their transition to the States. This newcomer academy could ensure that English language learners develop the foundation skills necessary for a successful transition into SEI, or Sheltered English Immersion courses, and other regular education classes at Burlington High School.
And I just wanted to ask a question. I'm not sure everybody knows the answer to that, because I
Yes.
do, just because we've
Yeah,
already
right.
have the answer. But how many ELL learners did you bring into the school system this year, and how many do you anticipate for next year?
I think it was Carrie, 40 this year, 35?
Yeah, we're at a total of 64.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And
I
they
just think that's important for people to know.
Yep, and the number has grown steadily over the years, and it's not only just the interrupted education. These students are coming with lots of different trauma, just the experiences of getting here. The students are working many hours a week. They come with a whole set, and I know a lot of you had the chance to meet some of our friends on Friday, so coming to us with a lot of different challenges. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else have any question or comment?
I do.
Mrs. Monaco?
I enjoyed the visit.
Yes, I enjoyed having you.
I especially enjoyed the life skills
Yes,
was
yep.
probably my favorite of all. But I also enjoyed the English language learners, English learners. There's even a new one now, isn't there? Carrie, what's the new one?
You said it, you said English learner.
No, there's a new one. Multilingual, yeah, and I like that because it gives credit to the fact that these kids know all these languages. It's not like they just can't speak English; they're fluent in one of the
One of them
They met Bensley,
languages.
right?
One of them
Ben-
spoke like,
I
what,
think they
6
met Bensley,
languages?
who
Something
spoke
like
five,
five
right?
languages,
So-
yeah.
Five
So I was
languages.
impressed.
Yeah, that was great. That was really a fun tour. So as I look at the notes I just took about expand the alternative ed program and Newcomer Academy, what kind of money are we talking about? I mean, this has got to be a lot of money.
Well, so I think if we focus just on the Newcomer Academy and we could have it at the high school, I think a bare minimum to start would be an ESL teacher and an aide, and an instructional assistant that were dedicated to that program. that's
When would
kind of.
they meet? During the day?
Well, so I think we would have to develop a kind of programmatic description about times and different offerings. I don't think they would follow the high school schedule. I think they'd have a non-traditional schedule. Again, some of these kids are working midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, so having them come in at 8 a.m. Tardiness is a big issue. The dropout rate with these students is high. You know, a lot of these kids are coming 16, 17, 18-year-olds. They're here for a month, they drop out, and so.
And come back.
Sometimes, yeah. We make every effort to get them to come back. So that would be kind of a baseline. If we were able to kind of combine the two, it would include a director and potentially.
Combining the newcomer and the expanded alternative ed.
Yes, right. So there's two entities that
Right.
we're talking about kind of living under one umbrella. So it would include a director that would oversee kind of all the programmatic issues, almost like a principal of the school,
Got it.
almost. And then at least one ESL and an instructional assistant or an aide. And then possibly other staff. We did begin the process this year of putting out information to some local schools about tuitioning out the program to other students. We're in some talks with some local schools about potentially piloting a couple of students coming to us on a tuition-based this spring. So that certainly could be a model that would help support some of the costs associated with it. But Nicole and I met, it's difficult to tie uncertain funds about kids coming in on a tuition basis to an ongoing operational or programmatic cost, because you just never know what those kids would be, at least to start off.
And again, through the chair, newcomers aren't new to the state of Massachusetts, they're new to Burlington. And so also Associate Principal Northrop, Ms. Northrop, and Ms. Lamprey met with the former superintendent in Chelsea. I think Chelsea High School also has a school within a school that we were talking about visiting. I just think the traditional high school schedule isn't serving these students well. And so we need to come up with the staffing for an alternative program and schedule. So again, Mr. Foss, you and I talk all the time. I'm saying this population isn't new where you teach either. And I'm sure Lowell has very specific programs and specialized programs for the students who arrive with the intention of fully including them as soon as possible. And I just think we have to start thinking a little bit differently. And I really appreciate that Mark is working with his neighbors, because we're all starting to get this population and we might be able to do something together again. So don't ever want to present this like it's brand new stuff. It's not. But I think we haven't had the numbers to provide the programming that we're currently seeing now that, again, Ms. Lamprey presented to you all last month. I think that you visited and that Mark's been seeing arrive inside the high school. So, and I just want to end by saying I think their arrival is a strength. I just want to make sure that I stress that. I think they contribute tremendously to the culture of the high school, and again, I think it allows all of our students to have the global experience that they are all going to graduate into as adults. So I don't ever want to view their presence from a deficit perspective. I really think it's an asset to the community, and I think we just need to provide a program that fits their needs.
I was just going to add to that this will help them, help us help them graduate from high school too and not drop out. This is something that really should keep them motivated and accommodate the schedules that these kids have so that they can actually graduate and not drop out. So that's an advantage to it as well.
That's certainly one of the goals, yes.
Ms. Simon?
I also think that this alternative school expansion for both aspects, where we might be able to take students from other districts, would be helpful, but also having a program for the newcomer population and for students who the nighttime alternative isn't the best option. I think there are more and more students who need alternatives, and that was my first job. I taught for 9 years in an alternative high school. So there are kids who just don't aren't successful in a traditional high school, and I think we need to, I'm delighted that we're beginning to discuss how to provide services and access to the curriculum and access to a diploma, because, and especially for the newcomers who are not native English speakers, it's particularly difficult. So I'm just really excited. I'm wondering if this is in the budget that we saw.
This is not. I think this
Okay.
came on later after the budget requests were submitted. But Dr. Conti does have it.
Okay.
Yes.
So because I completely support it, and
Yes,
if
great.
it's something that I think is really important, so I think,
Great.
as are the other requests,
Sure.
for the budget that you put out. As I said earlier, I mean, I think all of the positions that we got notice of in this budget that were being requested are valuable positions. They're valuable for the students, they're valuable for the schools, they're valuable for supporting our teachers who are doing more and more difficult work as we have more and more needs from many, many kind of students. So there's one particular thing that I've mentioned before that I will just like to mention, which is that several of the departments include funds for bottled water, and I think having clean water is important, and I do not begrudge any of that. But as I spoke, it's probably been a couple of years because of COVID, but I would love it if somebody could do some research and find out if there's a way that we could get filtered water for our teachers by putting filters on the faucets or whatever, so that we don't have to transport bottled water across the town, more carbon emissions, et cetera. So I'm not opposed to it in the budget this year, but I see it again, and I would love to have, maybe there's a teacher at the high school who, and I'm seeing somebody shaking their head in the back there, but you don't have to volunteer. No, it's okay. I won't say who it was. But yes, I mean, I think we need to look at, maybe Mr. Cuna can look into ways that we could provide healthy filtered water that tastes good to our teachers, which I think I'm not at all opposed to, but maybe there's another way to do it.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simon. Any other questions?
Just one last
Ms. Monaco.
The expanded alternative ed and the newcomer academy, I'm really happy to see those as requests, and I completely support them.
Great, thank you. I have one more.
Yeah,
too.
and Mr. Stovey, one more position I want to make sure you get
Yeah,
to,
okay,
so
thank you.
go ahead.
No, you.
Nope.
Okay. So the second position, and I've requested this the last several years, is a director or a coach or an assistant principal. I think the title is fluid in terms of the level that it comes in at, but it would be for curriculum instruction and special programs at the high school. And as I mentioned, as we continue our portrait of the graduate focused, crafting the vision centered on the transferable skills, knowledge, understandings, and dispositions necessary for future success. The faculty and staff of the high school will need to engage in considerable work to ensure that they are supporting all students to reach this vision. The committee right now is ensuring that they're supporting all students to reach this vision, and they're getting that sense of collective responsibility. And while we're clarifying the specifics about the skills that we want to identify, the next steps are really the critical aspects of the implementation of this work. So revision of school-wide curriculums, instruction and programming to help us continue to push forward by increasing student and staff capacity would be the essential functions for this particular position. If the last couple of years have not highlighted anything, is that there is a sense of urgency for these types of changes. And as faculty and staff continue to face increased challenges and address more and more demands on their time, having someone at the administrative level whose sole focus is on central issues to the classroom will support both teacher and student success and the overall well-being, in my opinion, of everybody. A person in a role like this could focus on answering some of the questions and concerns that the high school has currently, such as ensuring curriculum alignment that's focused on transferable skills, increasing educator capacity in instruction that centers on equity and inclusion, developing and facilitating a program to support the school's vision, and to oversee a lot of the special programs that we offer that are currently supported on a volunteer basis, such as the Career Exploration Program, culminating in the senior internship experience, the high school mentoring program, to name just a couple. So again, similar to the instructional coach that was placed at the middle school last year, this role would be similar in nature, but nuanced to the specific needs of the high school for next year.
Thank you. Dr. Conti?
Mark, again, the school committee, I just want to say the high school budget starts on page 68. And then I don't think I told you that the middle school budget is on page 48. So the details of what was included, the high school instructional coach, associate principal, whatever the title ends up being, is included in the budget. The expansion of the Eden Academy newcomer, we're really still putting that proposal together. So you'll see that moving forward. And my hope is that with many of our high-need students that we can potentially look to a budget source like the accommodated account to at least get that program started. So we'll have more conversations about that. Mark, again, thank you. Thank all of your staff. I think, again, this has been I lose track of time, but this is sort of the year back from COVID. I think everyone is adjusting to that, and I think the idea of an embedded instructional coach, similar to what's going on at the middle school, to really work on embedding the skills that teachers are learning through the Highlander Institute and moving forward, could work with, again, our new assistant superintendent and other central office supports, again, like a DEI coordinator. I know that's a touchy subject for people, but having those building-based folks along with the central office folk, I think would really help sustain the growth over time. So thank you for presenting that in your budget, and please thank your staff for their efforts.
Well, and thank you all for your support. I know whenever we need something, it's always a yes, typically. So I just wanted to thank all of you for your ongoing support.
Ms. Simon?
Yes, I am hoping that we can say yes to all of these.
Yes, I am too. Thank you.
And I also want to clarify what my understanding is, which is that there is in this budget a position for a director of diversity and equity in our central office, and that we would, if we were to support this additional administrative position at the high school, like we did last year with the instructional coach at the middle school, that we would be following what Dr. Conti has sort of laid out as a program, which is that we are going to try to be having building-based support for the equity work that we're doing. And I'm really delighted to hear that that's now a top priority for the high school, to have somebody who's got good experience and it's going to be their job to keep an eye on it, both at the district level for the other position, but in the high school certainly is a very important place where we need to make sure that all of our students feel that they belong, and that they feel safe, and having a person who can help the teachers make their classrooms and their curriculum be welcoming and be supportive to all of our students will help our students who have not maybe traditionally felt like they belonged. But it also has been shown, research shows that having curriculum and supports and culturally responsive teaching actually benefits everybody. And I know I'm speaking to the choir here, but the type of opportunity that this could provide is something that will benefit all of our students. And it's been shown in that research. So I very much am in favor of having a position and being really careful with our hiring to make sure it's somebody with the skills and the experience that they need. So I'm not the expert on how to write that job description, but I know there are a lot of people who know how to, and perhaps our new assistant superintendent, Dr. Chen, might have some examples from where she's worked before. But I think that it's important, and we've talked all year, we've been waiting because it was the middle of the budget year, but now we have a budget here that we can say, these are our priorities. We're going to hire somebody now this year at the high school. We're going to keep the position that we had before of the district-wide equity officer. And I think those are important. It's been a very long time, and it's been really hard for a lot of people, but I'm really encouraged that we will be moving forward if we approve this budget with these two positions in it. So thank you for presenting it and bringing it forward, and I definitely support that.
Thank you, Ms. Simon. Dr. Conti?
Again, Mark, thanks, and we'll work our way through.
Great,
And
thank you very much. Joe and Sean said they could go last if they'd be fine with that, so feel free to move on to everyone else first.
I will make sure that happens, so thank you. Again, you'll be approving the high school improvement plan as a second read next meeting, so you'll see that along with the elementary and the middle school. We're going to shift focus now a little bit. Nicole's going to put the budget up on the screen for different areas of the school district. Some of the cost center folks who are here, their requests are going to be already included, that you would have already had heard sort of how they're going to be supportive of schools. I do want to recognize the central office folks who are here, whose we always talk about servant leadership, and their roles are really to support what's going on in the classrooms and the buildings across the district. And so, again, many of the requests that you'll see in their budgets were already spoken to at the elementary, middle, and high school level. But Nicole is going to go through each line. You'll look at any that have significant increases, and folks are here to come on up. I want to make sure I thank them, and they can answer any questions that you have. So, and again, you have all of this detail in your budget book moving forward.
Can you give us page numbers as you go through it?
Yes.
Page 5.
So I have Bob brought up on the screen here, page 5, which is like the scorecard, so you can see just at a glance which departments did have increases and which were level funded. So as we sort of go through the agenda for who's here, that would be probably the best page to glance at. And
Can I
then
just-
the page before that, on page 4, has the links, so you can click the line and it'll bring you to their full budget.
This is just the budget portion. These additional position requests are outside of these increases, right?
Yeah, so the
Okay.
scorecard is just capturing the
Yeah.
expense side of the
Okay.
budgets, not the salary
Okay.
portions, but the additional position requests are on page 225. That's where they start. So,
So again, just
Literacy.
working down our list, we're going to look at the in-service, the elementary literacy. Is that next? Curriculum literacy?
Curriculum, yeah, literacy.
Skipping in service?
She's
We're
looking at the
not. It
agenda,
says
Martha.
curriculum literacy.
Okay,
That's what's
sorry,
next.
On the
Just-
agenda, got it.
Yes, on the
Following the
agenda.
agenda,
Okay, I'm looking at this
Madam
other
Chair, and I
list.
think we can pick up other stuff at the next agenda, so,
So
the-
curriculum literacy is next.
Yeah, so the elementary literacy, thank you. You can look at line 42, is a 0%. So certainly want to thank Ms. Renee Sacco, who creates this budget and does a lot of support, and she is recovering now, so wish her a speedy recovery. Madam Chair, with your
Next
permission,
one is
may I
math.
keep going?
Yes, please.
Okay. Just kind of move down. Math, we are here. Carrie Fortunato. Carrie, do you want to come up or wave so people can see? Carrie is our elementary math coach. Again, thank you, Carrie, for all of your work and support. You heard the request from principals for the addition of a math specialist at filling an empty spot at Francis Wyman that has stayed unfilled, and I think you heard from John Lyons at Pine Glen also requesting a math specialist. So again, they would be coordinated by Carrie, and Carrie has been doing the jobs of many now in their absence, so thank you. And Carrie, I see that your elementary math budget is a 0% as well.
Yes, it is. Part of the reason why it is because we're able to have a STNF grant. Push. Hi. Part of the reason why it's level funded is because we had an STMath grant for the last, we're actually 6 years ago, we had a 3-year grant, and so we're able to actually solidify the cost amount that we have. So going forward, STMath, we are stuck at $3,500 a school, which is really a huge discount for us, and so they can't actually increase that, so it's part of the reason why we can have a level funded budget. So I want to thank STMath and our grant from that. And I just want to reiterate the need for a math specialist. Right now, this year, I am the district elementary math coach, so I oversee the 4 elementary schools. Right now, we have 2 math specialists at 2 of the elementary schools. We have one at Memorial, and we have one at Fox Hill. We have the vacancy at Francis Wyman that we are posting right now and looking to fill it for next year. But we do have a vacancy at, or don't have a math specialist at Pine Glen. And there really is a need to have it and have it be equitable across the district to have at least one math specialist in each school. Currently, as you heard, there are 2 reading specialists in each of the schools except for Pine Glen. So it's really hard to service the students equitably across the district without at least one math specialist at Pine Glen as an added support staff. So.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Melissa, Ms. Massardo.
Mrs. McDonald showed that the Envision workbooks are skyrocketing.
Yes.
So if you're level funding, are you cutting something?
So that comes out of the school budget.
Oh, okay.
And this is my personal budget.
I
So
gotcha.
part of my budget is STMath, which is a supplemental program to our core program, which is Envision.
Okay.
But Mrs. McDonald will tell you they are cutting other things in order to provide the math consumables. So I think that's why she was advocating that if at all we could get increase from 0 for the consumables, that would be great.
Yeah. And we tried hard to get the best price we can get.
Oh, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that.
And we get the digital options for free from the company. So it's one of the perks that we do get by being with Pearson for so long.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other comments or questions? Okay, do you want to move on?
I do want to
Dr.
move
Conti?
on
for your
to.
support.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carrie, very much. Elementary social studies, again, Sean, you're wearing multiple hats, but would you like to come up and join us? Sean is our elementary social studies coach, and again, his budget is coming in at a whopping 0% as well. So, Sean, thank you for your work supporting social studies throughout the district and for bringing, I guess, your budget in. We are, again, going through a curriculum review process, and again, Sean is helping utilize these funds to make sure our social studies curriculum at the elementary level is aligned and up to date.
Sure. So just so we're aware, this is my 2nd year assuming this role. I do continue to serve the school system with Wendy Pavlicek in the Burlington Science Center. So the many hats is true, Dr. Conti. Currently, most of this budget is being absorbed by some curriculum materials that we are attempting to explore at the 4th and 5th grade level. It's nothing that we are prepared to implement. Obviously, we are waiting for the arrival of our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction to likewise evaluate those curriculums along with the many resources that we hope to see move forward and expand at the K-3 level, much like we have in the past with the science curriculum that happened in the before times, if you will. I will use this moment to say that as a K-5 curriculum specialist in this position that is obviously tinged with a lot of, I'm going to call them political cross currents in today's society, I do feel the strong need for a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion, along with the many other positions that have been shared here. Obviously, some of them are high school based and middle school based. When it comes to support here at the top level, which is sort of the funny, fuzzy world that I live, along with my other hat, I can't stress enough that that would be valuable to me. And I recognize that this board seems to have a plan or some sort of timeline in place. And I hope that we can continue to be transparent and clear about when we can expect those supports and how, and I look forward to hearing more about that in the future. But if you, I will certainly leave you with questions around how we are spending the current budget of the social studies, if you have any.
Thank you very much. Anyone have any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Ms. Monaco.
Just very generally, tell us a little bit about the social studies curriculum.
The social studies curriculum?
Yeah, the K to 5.
Yeah, sure. So broadly speaking, I have stepped into a space where the K-5 social studies curriculum is not currently consistent across our schools. That is one thing that I am attempting to right the ship on. If I may speak into a little more detail, the curriculum that we have sort of pilot purchased, if I say so, is for the 5th and 4th grade levels. I started with those levels because they had some strong curriculum through a group called Inquire Ed, which is the one and only curriculum that was actually sort of 5-star rated by our state's own history and social studies community that was like purchasable. The other materials that existed there were not sort of ready to, they were, how do I call them, sort of foundational sort of bases, but we're going to need a lot more work in terms of bringing into a classroom to allow them to use. So that's something that we are, again, piloting with some of our teachers here to try to get, to try to take a step towards that consistency across the schools. And again, it's not from a lack of desire. I think we have many teachers who go out of their way each and every day to provide the very best social studies experience that they can with their students. I think what persists, and I think we've heard it from all of the folks here, is that the limited amount of time that our teachers have to collaborate, coupled with, as you know, over the past several years, just the changes in how we've been able to operate in terms of curriculum work and meeting across districts and across our grades has dramatically reduced as all those other needs have increased and our teachers have been pulled in other directions. So it is something that, again, is high on my mind. It's something that we have dedicated professional development time in the coming months to simply get back to square one about having our teachers meet around what they're using. And there are certainly things, some pieces that are in place, like, for example, the work of Renee Sacco and my predecessor had created core book lists that our teachers have used. But again, those books, those lists are, again, coming from years prior to COVID. Real attention to this, given all the other needs that we've expressed, has not been given of late.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. That was very informative. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have a question or a comment?
Just to thank you, Sean, thanks
Thank you.
again. You are covering lots of material and doing many things, so appreciate, again, your flexibility.
Okay. Next up is music.
Let me try to find music. Again, music is a 0% in your budget. There are no additional music requests. Mr. Middleton just wanted me to reiterate he had some clerical support in the music office that he, again, is advocating for in next year's budget. But again, in terms of his operating budget program, he is level funded for next year.
Thank you. Anyone? No questions, right? Okay, next item is guidance.
Guidance, again, guidance has, Joe, if you want to come up, again, no, it's a very limited increase. Again, the percentages are, sometimes you have to look at the percentages with the dollar figures next to it, so I would say guidance is essentially level funded. Again, Joe, I think we've heard, again, a lot about the needs for the guidance counselors. I think Mrs. Concession helped us understand the sort of the counselor's role plus the school adjustment counselor's role, seeing those differences. And we've added an adjustment counselor to the high school in last year's budget. Is that, I'm sure everyone's being well utilized?
Absolutely, yes. 3 years ago, we added a school adjustment counselor at the high school, and then last year we added a second school adjustment counselor. And then we still have, we still have our existing, what we would call Tier 1 school counselors. There we go, all right. Now everyone can hear me. So we've been
You can
very
start
lucky.
over. No, I'm kidding.
We've been very lucky with the support of the school committee, Dr. Conti, Mr. Sullivan, in terms of adding the extra staff. Our school adjustment counselors are able to really focus in on what we've heard a lot of discussion around tiering, but are able to focus in on Tier 2 students, particularly the 2 adjustment counselors at the high school. They each are taking on different things within their roles. One school adjustment counselor is going to be working with our tutoring program at the high school. We've had a long-standing tutoring program that has had, limited oversight. And so one of our school adjustment counselors is going to be pushing into the program to work with, we probably have about close to 90 students that access tutoring, which again, this is a Tier 2 service, but the school adjustment counselor is going to be pushing in to do different types of executive functioning lessons, advocacy lessons, things that we really think would help these students improve. And the idea would be for those students to go through a 6 to 8 week process, and then hopefully they've developed the skills to be able to be successful. And then our other school adjustment counselor, Mrs. Concession's done such great work with the DESA and making sure that that is, completed by our students. And our other school adjustment counselor has been working on, meeting with students that hit a certain range on that DESA. And in addition, they each have individual caseloads. Again, every student's assigned a traditional school counselor. The school adjustment counselors are more in a supportive role. And then, again, we're hearing a lot about tiering, but our school counselors have really done quite a bit of work in training over the past couple of years, because the student dynamics have changed quite a bit. What they're doing with students now isn't the same as 5 or 6 years ago. They're doing a lot more social emotional things than in the past. But we're still doing the academic counseling, the college counseling, that hasn't gone away. So in terms of my budget, or the high school counseling budget, this is specific to the high school, doesn't include K through 8. We, on our end, I think many of you have had high school age children go through the school. So we discontinued our agreement with Naviance last year. We've moved on to a different program called SCORE. We are very happy with SCORE, not just because of the pricing, but because the feedback we've received from students, parents, and staff have been very happy with SCORE. It's still, just so the school committee knows, it's a college and career software program, essentially. And Naviance was the only show in town. We worked with them from 2006 to probably 2021, so quite a few years. And again, change can be tough, but it was a pretty easy adjustment for the counseling staff. So we continue in the budget. We continue to work with SCORE. In addition, we also PSATs. As you know, Burlington pays for the PSAT for all students in grade 10. So that is within the guidance budget, and that's something we will continue to do. We use the PSAT as a practice opportunity, as a threshold for dual enrollment courses. And I think back when Dr. Conti started here, that was one of the first things, was picking up the tab for the sophomores. So that continues, and that's part of my budget. We've been working with ASCA, the American School Counselor Association. We started our work with them probably about halfway through last year, and we continue to work with them this year. We are really diving into data in the counseling office more than we ever have. You've heard it, obviously, we talked a little bit about the DESA, but this is a little bit different. When counselors develop goals at the high school, years past, it's been more, for lack of a better word, like a generic goal. It was hard for us to get data points as counselors. So with our work with ASCA, we've actually started to work on, in terms of our goals as a counseling staff, we're looking at specific data now. And so we're looking at student failure rates based on grade level, based on, background, based on a number of things. And we're trying to really hone in on a small subgroup. So we're going to continue that work with ASCA. And in terms of other, I know you all have the budget. We do a counseling breakfast series monthly, and I think numbers have come back to these events. I don't know if you have any other questions. My equipment is up a little bit because we are looking to, I'd like to try to get a better handle on foot traffic in our office. And so what I'd like to do is we're doing some furniture moving in our office. Mr. Kuna helped us with the measurements on that, but we would like to purchase an iPad with a stanchion so students can check in when they come in, and we want to be able to track our foot traffic a little bit better. It's just it's an easier way for us to do that, and we've done it in years past with a laptop. It wasn't very effective, so that would be the reason you see an increase in the equipment budget.
So, Joe, thank you very much. Again, please pass on gratitude to you, the high school counseling staff. And as everyone has commented, everyone's job is getting much more complex. So thank you for that. And again, your budget is essentially level funded, so thank you.
Oh,
You had to
Ms.
wait
Simon?
all that time to tell us.
What's that?
You had to wait all that time to tell us.
Yes, right. That's okay.
Ms. Simon?
I just wanted to ask, what is the ASCA training? Is that learning how to use the data?
It's essentially, so one of the things we're working on with ASCA is developing an annual student outcome goal. And so we work with a representative from ASCA. We meet with her about an hour per month. And there's a set curriculum that she delivers to the counselors, and we are trying to use the information she provides us to help improve our department, one of which is developing that annual student outcome goal. And one of the big things, too, with ASCA that they look at is mindsets and behaviors. So they actually have a set standard curriculum and behavioral standards that they provide nationally. And we are trying to look at some of those behavioral standards and mindsets and apply them within our own practice. And the other thing that we're trying to do, Mr. Sullivan mentioned the CRI-OP. We have a portrait of a graduate. So there's all these different areas that we're trying to work on school improvement. And so we're trying to make sure we're cognizant of those things as well as we kind of work through this process. But again, data is not really a discussion that we've had very much over the years. And I would say the past year or two, we've really had a lot more discussion on looking at very specific data. So ASCA helps guide us with that process.
And then it also made me think, because we do use the PSAT scores for placement. So are we looking at that data disaggregated by student groups to know if there are marginalized groups that are not doing well, and where's that coming from? How can we address it systematically? Are we using, it wouldn't just be to the guidance department to look at this, but is that something that's on your radar?
It is, and I think it's something we certainly look at. We could probably improve upon it, but right now what we do with the PSAT data is, in addition to using it as a threshold for our dual enrollment program, we also use it for AP potential placement, and so...
But so how are we using that to then help students who are not, students...
So we run an we do run an
They make it or they don't make it, and then, so now we have to look at who's not making it, who wants to be making it, and how are we supporting them?
Yeah, so we do an aggregate report with the PSATs that provides us with all that data. And so Mr. Sullivan every year will look at that data, and we encourage students to sign up for AP courses. And so it's a little bit complex, but when we break down the data is essentially, we're looking at the percentage of what a student would achieve on an AP test. So the PSAT gives us that data. And when we look at that, we try to make sure we're looking at all students. And, you know, I think one of the things to keep in mind is that PSAT is just one data point. And I think our teachers, our department heads, the counselors are encouraging all students to challenge themselves when they register for classes. So, you know, I think as we move forward, we will continue to look at the data to make sure that we're, you know, recognizing all, you know, all academic backgrounds. But again, it's just one data point.
So I actually would like to have more conversation, but not tonight, about this issue, and I would hope that we would, maybe after our equity audit report comes back, hopefully before the end of the year, we could look at this kind of information, and with Dr. Chen coming on, I'd like to look more into this, and maybe it will become obvious once we have people looking at that. But I thank you for your...
Yeah, and I can't say one last thing, I know other people are waiting too, is that if you look at the AP data over the years, our enrollment has increased significantly. Again, I know there's lots of opinions on the AP program, but in terms of a roadblock being in place for students registering for AP, I think over the past 5 or 6 years, if you look at our AP enrollments through our school profiles, it has gone up substantially. So I think there's a lot more access than there's ever been to the AP courses.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, let's move on to the next. It's athletics.
Athletics.
Sorry, Jose. Age before beauty. Sorry, buddy. You are beautiful, though.
Let me know if you need some help.
Can you submit?
Again, thank you, Mr. Hart, for your patience this evening. Again, you're looking at an athletics budget, again, brought in at a 0%, again, along with phys ed and health. So I know they're two very separate things, but Madam Chair, maybe if Mr. Hart can speak to both, that would be great. So Sean, thank you for bringing your budget in. And again, I just had to look out my office window. Spring sports started today. I think we have lots of students participating, and that always, looking just at the numbers of the budget, sometimes it's easy to lose track that there are students represented in these numbers. And again, I saw evidence of that today. So thank you, and thank your staff for all their work.
No, well, thanks, everybody. And that's the very first thing to say. Obviously, thank you. And I brought just a couple of points from last year's budget. And I just think it's good to hear how things that we've approved in the past over the last year have affected how we're moving forward. And again, I know that you have followed, and I know a lot of you have been part of these things, but ultimately, just a quick update. So in our spring sports second day of tryouts today, we're at 400 student athletes out there participating in athletics. So I think that's pretty incredible. Boys volleyball, last year you approved it, and I just want you to know that obviously they made the state tournament in year one, and they were ranked 16th in the state after that year. So I mean, again, thank you for allowing us to have that opportunity.
And may I just interject, Matt Shannon, our student rep, plays on the team, and he said next Tuesday during our business meeting, I believe there's a scrimmage that's home, so he invited the school committee members if they wanted to, is the scrimmage between 5 and 6 or 5:30 or?
I think it's a 4:30 to 6:30.
So if you wanted to stop in prior to the meeting and watch Matt spike a volleyball.
Which gym is it in?
It's in the Wood Gym.
Wood Gym, okay.
Yeah. So again, just following up, you guys approved some e-games money for us in coaching, and our e-games team this year lost in the state final in their first year of being, again, they had some experience before that, but in competing. And again, anybody who was part of any night down in our unified basketball program, again, I can't tell you how much that's meant to us, and maybe the most important program we've brought to Burlington in as long as I can remember. So I want to thank you for all of those things. Last year, we added a full-time trainer. And I need you to know how important that is. Again, we're supporting from 3:30 in the afternoon till 10 o'clock at night, 400 students. So the school doesn't close when we teachers and everyone goes home in the evening to be with their families. So ultimately for us, bringing on that full-time athletic trainer was such an important part. She's made great inroads. We still have a stipended trainer position that we're still using, and ultimately, I know that you'll see it in the asks, if you would, that we are asking for an additional trainer this year to move away from the stipended position and bring somebody else on. Again, ultimately, the MIAA and rules surrounding sports has started to require us to require more safety at games and more additional people to be at games. I know all of you probably saw and heard, and I know that in this conversation, the NFL had a stoppage in play because of an injured player on the field that they had to resuscitate over and over again. Again, those measures are what is important, and we're taking all of those things into consideration. So ultimately, we just want to put that out there that, again, with state regulations and things that are happening on our sports fields, we want to make sure that we have adequate personnel. And again, with 400 students just in the spring, we're looking at 32 varsity level programs, not including JV programs, not including freshman level programs. So when we put the numbers together, it's an amazing place for one or two people to cover all of us. So again, just putting that out there for you. And it is with a focus of care, safety, and rehabbing our student athletes. So ultimately, we've put a lot of eyes on that particular prize for us, if you will, and it's a piece that we're still pushing to make sure that we're okay in. And again, as far as services, equipment, rentals, supplies, I don't need to tell you that those things have skyrocketed. Everybody knows that. That's the same story you've heard here all night. And with the luxury of being able to do some things in the athletic department, we've been able to help and do our part in staying as evenly funded as we can.
So again, thank you. Again, level funded budget despite increases, and I'm just going to, I know we're talking about fiscal '24, but this idea that we can continue to level fund supplies and materials, I hope the committee is realizing that we cannot. So again, Sean, thank you very much, and please, again, pass on our gratitude to all the coaches. I have, again, Madam Chair, respectfully, I have PE and health next, again, at 0%. I just want to double check, Mark, we added a health teacher last year's budget, is that correct?
We did add the teacher. It was an existing position. No, I'm all set. So we didn't technically add a new position. It was an existing position that we didn't fill for a couple of years.
But it's filled currently?
It's filled currently, yes.
And so there's no additional staffing needs at the high school for the PE and health?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then just as part of the health, just an announcement, the youth risk behavior survey, again, is...
We administered it today.
Okay.
Correct. At the high school, I'm not sure
the middle
about,
school yet.
I'm not
but
sure about the middle school.
It was administered today, so
Correct.
again, school committee will see those results, I believe, during the summer, as we would typically do, or in the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did, before Mr. Hart left, I just wanted to make one more comment. I just want to say, thank you for continuing to support the boys gymnastics team. They've won back-to-back state championships, and I think we need to mention that because that's actually not a lot of boys gymnastics teams around the state, and it's, I guess, a dying sport for high schools countrywide, so I appreciate that we continue to support that.
Well, again, it was easy for us this particular year, but again, we're looking at 3 teams left. We were, at one time, a multitude of teams. Now we're down to 3 teams. We had 17 total participants, but we kept it. We revamped it through the MIA level, and essentially we allowed every single student athlete that wanted to participate. We just did it a little differently. We kind of changed everything that we had done in the past to make it so that there would be all of those kids would be participating in each venue, so they got to see every different school and compete in every different school, and then came back here and we changed it so that there would be an individual state championship, because 17 total it made more sense for them to compete individually versus having one team versus the other.
Right, and I have to tell you, observing that competition, the state championships, those kids should be commended. They support each other in a way they were supporting each other's teams, not just supporting their own team. I was very impressed.
Well, we're very lucky here in the fact that I think that we garner a lot of support from all of our athletes to all of our other athletes. It's pretty impressive. If you come down and watch almost anything that we're doing, there's a number of people there making sure that their kids are not feeling under-supported.
Thank you. Dr. Conti?
I did misspeak. Nicole mentioned that Matt Jackling, our Director of PE and Health, is requesting an elementary health teacher. And again, we can have the justification, but I believe he's, especially for the instructional needs, the puberty needs that are happening, I think he is looking for some additional support, and this was a position that existed in Burlington for a long time. I think a woman I met when I first came, Margaret, Peggy, I'm blanking on her name, but she was instrumental in teaching health to elementary students. Thank you, gentlemen. Science Center, Wendy,
Eric.
please.
Can I just comment on the
Yes.
health teacher?
Yes.
I know Safe Routes to School curriculum could be run through that position as well. I know they have a lot of curriculum that they generally would teach, train the trainer type of scenarios, but they have, K through 12 curriculum that would be a great home for Safe Routes to School.
Great idea. Thank you very much. I have that down. Wendy.
Science Center.
Ms. Pavlicek, thank
You're
you for your
next.
patience.
And all
thank
of you who are still waiting, thank you.
Thank you for all that you do. Science Center, again, level funded, but the impact of the Science Center on our elementary school students is invaluable. So anything that Ms. Pavlicek needs, you should approve. So how's that?
Thank you.
Where are the props?
I did bring someone if you want to meet them for a little, I just know people are waiting, but I can be quick. Yes?
Who'd you bring?
Is this a vote? Like, do we have to vote?
Who'd you bring?
So that was yours.
I know.
We need a break anyway.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. Well,
What is
it's
it?
a budget meeting. You got to spice it up a little bit.
Please.
Oh, hi, honey. Yeah. So this is Starla. She's an African pygmy hedgehog, and Starla is used in all our kindergartens every year as part of a Jan Brett the Mitten program. Jan Brett is a local Massachusetts author, so we connect literacy with science, and the students learn about the science of the animals and animal needs, and what they do in their environments through that. So our other hedgehog is retired. He's elderly, has cataracts and arthritis, so I got Starla from a local breeder. She was actually returned as a pet and ended up being free, so we saved $300. So talking about budgets, but she's super great. I'll just walk her around quick. I don't want to take too much time.
Oh.
She curls up in like a...
She curls in a ball.
Oh, she's adorable.
Oh, right there. Right there. Where are you going?
Well, I'm the one who asked. I mean, I'm the one who said where are the props. Oh, what a cutie.
The owl did get a ride, yes. But I just wanted to thank you for your continued, support of the Science Center and all the programs that we do. Even though we focus K to 5, there's a lot of the Science Center that reaches K to 12 and beyond, and even the lab and other supportive programs. So I just want to thank you for your continued support.
Wendy, from the Program of Studies conversation too, the high school students who work in the Science Center used to be considered a directed study almost, but Joe and Mark are working with Wendy to put together an elective class so students can earn a credit while working in the Science Center and feel like, because they're putting in a lot of time, and you all approved that. So Wendy, thank you for your work on that.
You're
and I
welcome.
think that would give you maybe more dependable, regular support. And,
Yes, so we'll run it both ways. It can be a study, or it can be taken as a semester elective.
So when Wendy's saying she does, it's elementary plus, it is elementary plus. So thank you, and
You're welcome. Thank
and
you.
your preschool presentations are also very popular. So again, it's really a pre-K to 12 resource for everybody. So
And I
thank you.
just had 220 eggs go in our master incubator, which will all hatch in the kindergartens in the next couple weeks. So it's a big kindergarten theme today for some reason, but thank you so much. And we are, of course, also level funded, so. Yeah.
And I was going to say, your plus also to was supporting Mr. Moran's son in that Eagle Scout program. Yeah, that was
Yes,
awesome.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. We actually have another student who's currently working on revamping our owl enclosure and falcon enclosure and tortoise outdoor area. You might notice the fence has fallen down and it's kind of falling apart. That's all Eagle Scout based throughout the years. We've had many that have contributed to that project. So he got approved from what I heard, and we'll be starting work on spring. He just has to get some final approvals from the school, but I think the Eagle Scouts have approved it, but now he has to go through his next steps. So again, thank you for supporting that.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the visitor.
You're
Yes.
welcome. It's always fun to.
Nicole.
Yeah, thank you.
We got a second wind.
We'll put you on earlier. Nick.
We needed a
She's
lighten
listed
up.
as 100% increase.
Next time, bring the alligator.
Thank you.
All right, next up is art.
Moving on
Page
to art.
138 and 139.
Again, we don't have anyone here representing art, but again, what?
Oh, he's online.
Oh, George, sorry, George, I didn't see you. Thank you for your patience. I'm looking online. George Rakovich is, again, our outstanding K-12 visual arts director, bringing in his budget again at 0%. And many of you visited with George when you did your high school tour on Friday, so you heard a lot of the outstanding parts of his program. George, I'll turn it over to you. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Oh, no, not at all. I don't have anything to add. I just thank you for your continued support. I want to put a plug in for a couple shows we have right now. The high school show is this Thursday night, and this is for, I know I've already talked to the school committee, school committee members about it, but for anyone out there listening, it's the first time we've had a show, I think, in 4 years now, because it was before the COVID year was our last show. So we've got a small show at the high school. We're representing every one of our students, and some really good work there. It's on Thursday from 5 to 7, and then the Lexington Arts and Crafts Society. I apologize for my dog drinking here, but the Lexington Arts and Crafts Society annual regional high school artist show is still up, and it's up until the end of next weekend, and we're doing that in conjunction with a bunch of other schools in the region. So that's a wonderful little show, and you get to see how all the different programs in the different schools operate, and how they're different from each other.
George, thank you very much, and thank you for your time Friday, giving the tour of the art area and more details about the program. So really appreciate it, and thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, at any time. We love visitors. We love people coming by uninvited too. So anytime.
Thank you very much. Next is capital article.
We're going to skip that
Okay.
because we have capitals coming up. Next is IT.
IT.
So, Mr. D'Souza,
Thank you for waiting.
thank you for your patience.
Yeah.
Again, budget in front of you is, again, a 2% increase, which again, from my perspective, is level funded. So, Mr. D'Souza, again, thank you for all that you do to keep us up and running. Just for the committee's edification, Mr. D'Souza was also an outstanding chaperone when our students went on their Spanish exchange trip. So he lended his time to supporting our students directly. So I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an IT director that works directly with students. So Jose, thank you for that.
So thanks to
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your support once more and for believing me by going with a bunch of good students, excellent actually. They made my job real easy. Only that I got sick once a couple of days, but other than that, pretty good. I'm here tonight just because briefly I want to talk about two items. One is the budget. And as you may see it, I think it's on page 52, according to you. There are 114?
111.
Oh, I'm sorry. There are three items over there. One is contracted services, materials and suppliers, and equipment. The increase is in the contracted services, and that is an item that we really cannot cut corners. I mean, vendors raise the price, and there is nothing that you can do. And if you want to continue the services, you have to pay. I just want to note on the other two, materials and supplies and equipment, that although we tried to put it level funded, I think that we're going to be having a problem next year. Everybody knows about the increases in the market, and really, this is going to become an issue. I was doing some math today, for example, on projectors. I think we have an item over there for $50,000 that allowed us to buy 41 units every year. With the prices today, I think we're going to be allowed to buy just 31. So that is 10 less than before. Something just to note for next year, not for this fiscal one. So I don't know if you have any questions about that budget, so I can go to the second item.
Go ahead.
Second item is, I want to come with your support because I think that at this time we need another body in the team. There are right now, there are 5 of us. That would be Faydeen, who is our administrator assistant. I have 2 help desk technicians attending 6 schools. Each one attends 3. Then I have Eric with me, and we have to wear kind of different hats every single day. We are acting as administrator assistants, technology directors, CISO, which is the Chief Information Security System, and is putting a big dent in this business because we have to pay more attention to cybersecurity, even though it's not just an IT role. Systems and Network Manager and Systems and Network Administrator. This combine all with a Tech Director. So every day, we attending all these calls, which, by the way, I can tell you the numbers. Last year was like 4,003 calls originated in the district and service too. And this year we are on 3,612. So if we do the numbers, we're going to be there again. And the job is getting a little more difficult to attend just by these 4 members. I also want to say that I have the support of my team from the town, but they also busy there, and I'm using them more like when I need consulting than every single day. I don't know what else to do.
A quick question, of the 3,000 you said calls you field?
3,600.
600, right. And what are the hours that those typically come in?
I would say every single day from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the
8
afternoon.
to 5. There's no after hours support at all, or is there?
Bob that calls me sometimes at 10 o'clock at night.
I'm just curious.
No, there are some people that really call you at night, but those are kind of heavy questions.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Massardo?
Is the front end of the website under your purview too?
No,
No,
it's not.
okay. I have one other question. What is the print management program?
The prime?
Print management program?
Oh, the print management program. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first word. That is a program where we have to support all the printers in the district. And that is by replacing toner on all the units, buying new units when the old ones break, and stuff like that.
Okay.
And the amount that you see there is accurate.
I believe you.
Yep.
Is that different than all these Canon machines that we have pay leases on?
It is.
Okay. Okay.
Ms. Simon?
In terms of the new position that you're requesting, you've specified asking for network support. Is that something that your current techs work on, but you'd like someone specifically identified for that? Or would it be an additional tech staff in your office?
There is no predefined role in any member of my equipment. Like different times of the day, we execute different roles. And for example, Eric and I most of the time are working from our office, centralized, monitoring networks, systems, etc., applications on iPads and stuff like that. Then we have 2 technicians attending the schools. However, if the amount of work is required, we have to go there. If one call in sick, we have to fill in there. And depends, like I said, depends on the hour and the day. Sometimes we are technicians and sometimes we are administrators. But there is not a predefined that this is your role and that's all it is, no.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Okay.
Again,
Dr.
I would
Conti?
say more and more of the devices are being controlled from a centralized location, and so as we're adding devices, we certainly need people out in the buildings, but there's a higher need to control all the pieces and secure all the pieces from the central office. So,
Mr. Cunha?
Jose, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to add something and actually touch base on Ms. Massardo's question. So the print management system that we have is different because of different devices when it comes to network-based copiers, right? So because they're a whole different style, I would compare it to a small sedan versus, let's say, a dump truck. Right? So because of that, what happens is everything that's considered small business class in a printer, we have a maintenance contract and a toner contract on those to maintain those in the classroom. Once we get into individualized copy machines, let's say in more of the main offices, those are individualized, so they're on separate contracts. So copier, printer. And even if it's a multifunction, smaller printer that you may see, it's still considered small business class as opposed to large-scale copier.
Okay, and the printers are this $84,000 print management program?
For
and that's
all the
for
printers in all of the districts,
Everywhere, okay.
right? As opposed to, let's say, the one copy machine in the business office, that would be individually handled by the office.
Okay.
And I believe last year was, I think that we went to 2 million copies in the whole district.
Thanks for
Color
that
black.
clarification. Exactly. Dr. Conti, do you want to move to the next one, or are you ready? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for your support again.
Dennis,
Oh,
thank
thank
you
you.
for being so patient. Library is next. I think Dennis is going to win the prize tonight. He comes in at a 16% increase. Again, but given the numbers, I'm almost thinking this is level funded as well, given the context. Dennis, again, thank you. Library Media team is fantastic. Dennis works very closely with Jose and providing the professional development in terms of the use of the technology that we're providing so that it enhances instruction, also helps meet the needs of many of the diverse learners that we have. The jargon is it helps us personalize learning, and so Dennis is a big supporter of that. And just an aside, Dr. Chen, when she came to Burlington, one of the first people she met was Jen Sheffer, who was a member of Dennis's team, and what she commented is she had watched Jen's instructional videos that Jen puts up for our own staff. So I think your team is getting traction outside of the district, outside of the state. So again, Dennis, thank you for that, and I'm sure you're going to explain the 16% increase.
Yeah, and I wasn't expecting to be the leader on the scorecard tonight, but I'm here for that. First, real quick first for Jose and his request for the additional position, if I just can follow up. My role, obviously, with tech integration integration is heavily embedded in what happens in classrooms with devices and applications. Jose and his team do an amazing job with a very small team. If you look at it compared to other districts with the number of devices and applications that they manage. Their ticket numbers, their devices, the systems that control the applications is very complicated. And to have a team of only 4, it's very difficult in 2023 to manage that. So if anyone has any other further questions about that, I'm happy to answer more about how that affects what happens in the classrooms. Because that role that he's asking about, although it's an IT position, it has a direct impact on teaching and learning. And I know it's sometimes we don't look at IT in that way, but that role does, because it's a very important position for the applications in the classroom. I am here for library, although the increase that you're seeing is not actually library. So let me try to explain that very quickly. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the library team. We do have an outstanding library team we have a great library program in Burlington. The library budget is 0. It is 0%. I know that the workbook here from finance is showing an increase. It's actually a new request. So let me explain that. So library itself is 0, that we have not changed. I think we moved a little bit from one part of the budget from contracted services to books because of subscriptions that change every year for us. But library itself is a 0. The increase of $20,000 is actually new, specific to computer science. This is to follow up on the grants and warrants that we've had since 2019 to build the CS for All program pre-K to 12. So we've had the Innovative Pathways grant at the high school, which was a state grant. We had a warrant from the town, which is very generous for the computer science curriculum at the middle school. And we also had a warrant for the pre-K to 5 curriculum for computer science, so that we have a true pre-K to 12 computer science program. This request is just the maintenance of that year after year. So not as cool as Wendy's hedgehog, but I bought one of what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's hard to visualize computer science. This is just a robot. This is a Sphero rover, Mars rover we call it. It's part of our elementary curriculum. These items, as you know, cost money. They get used. Kids may use them pretty harshly. They drive over things. We can even take these outside. They need new batteries. So it's sustainability. So that's what that line item is. It covers replacement of the items from the warrants and grants. Also, it will cover some subscriptions. So, for example, some of our applications to do with drones, to do with esports, our esport league fees. What else? I think I had in my notes. We also have some contracted services related to professional development for computer science teachers as we're developing the program. That is where this request is. I know it's showing up in the library. I think that's just where it was put in the workbook. But essentially, it would probably fall into its own category at some point down the road.
Thank you. Ms. Massardo.
I have just a couple easy questions, hopefully. It says pre-K through 8. Is that just...
Initially, what we developed is a pre-K to 8 for this 20,000. The high school is funded by the departments at the high school, so quite a bit of that is funded within the high school. This would cover the pre-K to 8 devices and would start by sustaining some of the middle school. That's the oldest. That was the original grant that was in place. So the first year, I think even if we just did, updated a laptop cart, it probably would be close to $20,000. But this is specific pre-K to 8, even though it's part of our program is pre-K to 12.
Okay. And since we're talking about it, and I see you mentioned the esports gaming subscription, like we already talked about athletics and funding athletics, and I know we have, maybe it's at the high school, maybe I think there's some at the middle school, but I know we have growing robotics competition interest. So I want to make sure we're funding that like we're funding athletics.
Yeah, so robotics and esports are separate. So I don't actually manage any of the robotics competitions. Leroy Wong from the high school is the coach of the esports team that was a state finalist this year in esports, and I think only our 3rd full year of competition. They do have league fees. That's where this is coming from. So we have middle school and high school students that can participate in that, but that's different from robotics. There's no connection here between those two. We do want to push that esports league down fully into middle school. There's a lot of interest for that. I think I've talked to some of you in the past. Esports is the fastest growing industry, and a lot of the colleges are now offering full or partial scholarships for esports. We expect to have our first esports athlete sign a college scholarship either at the end of this year, we see that as a possibility, but certainly a student for next year. So that those leagues all have a fee. They are being moved towards the MIA to be moved towards athletics, but over the past few years, we're still funding those league fees as from within our own budget.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
I'm sorry.
Ms.
and
Simon.
Is the high school library included in the library budget here?
Yes.
I didn't see any specifically.
Yeah, so the library, again, which is zero, I think it's a $124,335, Bob, if I'm seeing that right. That number is for all libraries in the district.
Okay, yeah, I see it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Ms. Monaco?
I just want to say that's cool.
Yes.
And-
So, go ahead.
And it's really nice to see you.
It's good to see you. I know the last few times I've been remote, so it's nice to see you all in person. And it reminds me, because the digital learning coaches really want to come visit all of you and show off some of these things and let you try it hands-on. We had February 2nd or 3rd, we had a family computer science CS night. Computer science ed night at the middle school, and we had over 350 family members, parents and students from Burlington join, and the digital learning coaches led that. They had stations, they had the rover, other robotics things that we have in place, so I know they want to bring that all, so you can try it. You can try this out yourself.
I think
We will make that an agenda item,
it will
Dr.
be a
Conti.
future agenda item, so, yeah, so,
I want to play.
So we certainly can do that. And Dennis, I believe there was a scheduling conflict with that on that same evening, I believe. So, but again, heard phenomenal things about that night. So again, thank you, and please thank your team for all that they are doing and providing. And again, I think that we talk a lot about professional development and some of the flexibility. Dennis's team has been a real leader in providing asynchronous opportunities for teachers to learn some of the applications they're using in their classroom. And I just think Teachers' Days are so jam-packed. You hear all this stuff about the preciousness of time. The asynchronous training, again, is something that not every district has, and so thank you for providing that.
Thank you. All right, next item is health services.
Health services, again, 0% increase. And I don't think anyone here is representing health services, so with that, want to move on to the second most important line here, or maybe the first, I'm not sure, so we'll see. Robin, Ms. Miliano, come on up. So thank you for your patience. The school information office, again, incredibly important, and for no other reason than Robin reports to the state our October 1st money, which generates the state revenue that we get. So Robin is responsible for millions of dollars of budget money that comes into Burlington. Robin, again, besides that, you really help us when we talk about outcomes. Robin really helps us look at student outcomes very critically and carefully. So Robin, thank you for all your work.
You're welcome.
So the Student Information Office budget is increasing. I think some of that is to Open Architects, is that correct?
Correct,
So,
yes.
if you want to just take a few minutes, and again, I promised the committee this is a budget presentation. We will spend more time on Open Architects as a future agenda item where we can actually get into it. But Robin, I can't thank you enough for your work that you've done with Open Architects.
You're very welcome. Hello, everyone. So as Dr. Conti said, we have contracted with a company called Open Architects, and what they do is they take our data, our student information data, and they create dashboards for us so that we can easily utilize the data that we collect. We have dashboards that are student-based, student-based and staff-based. And so we have everything from student enrollment, student attendance, special ed dashboard they have just rolled out for us, which I'm working with Christina Ciccolini to sort of tweak to have the data useful for her and her team. We have data for MCAS, all our assessments, MCAS, our access testing for EL students, all of the assessments that are utilized through Renee and Carrie at the elementary schools for iReady, ST Math, all of the, I'm sorry, not ST Math, Symphony, I apologize. But all of that data is in one dashboard so that we can easily look at it. We can look at it at a district level, we can look at it at a school level, and then we can get down to the individual level if we need to. We also have contracted Open Architects to create staffing dashboards for us, so we can look at our hiring practices, our diversity. We can look at staff attendance, which is something that we want to just kind of keep our eye on. And all of the principals have had some exposure to these, and the feedback that we're getting from at the principal level and at the director level is that these dashboards are just invaluable. You know, Dr. Purchase has been utilizing them with her Highlander Institute, trying to gather data for them for the programs that they're rolling out there. So it's just it's an invaluable resource that we have, and it's a the company is amazing to work with. They roll out the dashboard, they have us look at it, ask us what our suggestions are for different things. If it's not pulling the data in the right way, we kind of work together to do that. But I think that going forward, we will be utilizing these dashboards in many, many ways. And I'm excited to roll it out. And again, they're still building some of them for us, but currently I believe we have 8 or 9 that are ready to be looked at.
So the increase in the budget is really the subscription to this service. I think there was a gentleman early in the technology sort of expansion of schools named Alan November, and he coined this phrase that school districts are data rich and information poor. We have lots of data on students. This dashboard is allowing us to be data rich and information rich. I also want to make sure we tie this to our DEI efforts. I think DEI is ultimately about access and outcomes, and we talk about learning, equity, and thriving. One of the things that we need to more carefully do is look at our access and outcome data based on different groups of students, and these dashboards will allow us to easily do that. So. And then sustaining that over time. So if we are trying to make progress in terms of expanding access and opportunities and outcomes, we can actually look at the results of our efforts. So again, I'd like to spend some significant time, an agenda meeting time on the school committee, just talking about data and what this actually looks like. Again, you're looking at it now through a budget lens, but please know that this is a very important part of the budget. It's a very important part of our DEI efforts moving forward, and I just think it's going to be a very useful tool. Ms. Miliano mentioned principals, directors. I know we have some teachers also. The intention is, once the dashboards are set up, is that it's not secret information. Everyone would have access to the dashboards. We're just trying to roll it out in a way that that makes sense and that's usable. So we'll try to do more training as the dashboards get developed. And what's great about this company too is if there's a dashboard that a teacher or principal or director needs that doesn't exist, they've also committed to developing that dashboard. So there may be something that we haven't thought of that someone says, boy, I really need to see that data. And they draw on our information every night. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So the dashboards are in real time.
Wow.
So which is spectacular. Robin, just in terms of your other hat, the school information office hat, the level of reporting that that is required by public school districts has only increased, and I think Robin and your staff has done a great job keeping up with that. We still use Aspen as our primary student information system tool, and again, our plans are to continue to utilize that. The dashboard system that we're talking about will actually extend the life of a system like Aspen, and I would be remiss, and Carrie's going to come up, and I'm going to make sure I thank her as well, but Robin and Carrie, along with Christina and Chrissy, are really part of the team that welcomed 20 families to Burlington. They're staying at the extended stay and really gathered information, a lot of information that really doesn't exist, and is working with the state to make sure those students have a welcoming experience both to Burlington and our school district. So Robin, thank you. I think you spent a couple days over at the extended day
I did.
knocking on doors. So I really appreciate your efforts, and I know that you'll do anything for the students here. So I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you. Ms. Simon?
Yeah, I want to thank you for everything you do. And I also want to say that I've had this conversation a little bit with Dr. Conti, but I'm hoping in the fall, once these dashboards people get familiar with them, perhaps we could have a monthly report, data reports that we could track, in particular equity issues, but any issues that we come up with, we could ask for. And I would hope that would be not too big of a burden because of this kind of a software.
Yeah, no, I think that
Thank
that's
you.
definitely something that we could do, for sure.
And Mr. Foss?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We started using Open Architects in Lowell this year, and I can attest that it is excellent and powerful, and it's exciting that it's coming here. I just had one question about it. The cost on the line item, is that just like the initial year, like the first year, or is it going to cost that much every year?
It will cost that much every
Okay.
year, yeah.
I think
it's
it's
a
worth
yearly
it. I was
cost.
just curious about that, yeah.
So we had the ability to have just the student data, but we felt that having the staff data is just as useful for the hiring and for our evaluation system. So we felt that we really should get the whole package at one point.
That's great. I think it's going to be worth it.
Great, thank you.
I agree. Anyone else comments?
Nice to see you, Robin.
And you as well.
Great job.
And thank
All
you.
right,
Thank you for what you do.
Thanks
Yes.
so much.
All right. And next is ELL.
All the hard questions now. Come on, everybody, build up your list.
Good to see you again, Ms. Lamprey. Thank you for all the time you spend here with us.
Again, ELL is coming in, again, on your page 5 budget at 0%. But I'm not sure that necessarily or accurately reflects the growth in ELL, and you've heard many of the needs, especially Mr. Sullivan. And I think that we, again, I just want to make two statements again that I've already said. I think the students that we have coming into Burlington with languages other than English, again, are an asset. They're a strength to our school district. So again, I never want to have a deficit conversation. It is a challenge to educate, but I think people really love that challenge, and I think there's other benefits in terms of that we get. So in terms of the central office, director like Ms. Lamprey is involved in any of the ELL conversations that you heard today from the buildings. Carrie has been a part of those conversations, leading those conversations, and supporting those conversations. So sometimes it's hard when, again, a principal is where sort of everything comes together, but we're all here to support the building-based work and the classroom-based work that's happening. So Carrie, thank you. I know Mark talked a lot about the Newcomer Academy, but your fingerprints are all over that conversation, and I just want to make sure that I pointed that out to the committee, and I really appreciate you helping us get to know some of the students at the high school on Friday, and I know you have a strong connection with those students and their families, and again, I think Carrie is really, I think, a community advocate for that part of Burlington, so thank you.
No, thank you so much. And exactly what you said. Those students are really what I wanted for a community in which to raise my children. A community where there is diversity, where they're going to learn new things every day because there's different perspectives that they can learn from. And I can just say that, I see it in my own son who's here at the high school. He's a sophomore, and, he comes home and tells me how he scored a goal in the soccer game at PE class because he had a lot of the Guatemalan students on his team. So he was able to be successful. Or, again, he's picking up Spanish much more rapidly because he's having conversations. So I think, again, there's a lot of assets for all of our students here. Again, I also just want to connect with what Robin was talking about with Open Architect. So the presentation I shared with you in November about access testing, that was taken from Open Architect. I could not have done those data tables. I have to be completely honest. Could not have done those without Open Architect and all the data that was just right at my fingertips. So I can definitely agree that it's a great tool for us to have. And I also want to thank you all so much for your time. I feel like you must be pretty tired of seeing me come up here, but your support has been just so amazing. And I just really appreciate having the opportunity this year to come in front of you and really advocate for, as we talked about, a population that isn't necessarily able to advocate for themselves. And so thank you for the opportunity to make sure that that we're hearing from all voices from our community. And then one other thing I just want to thank you for is the role that you instituted, the assessor role for our English learners. And Maylee Castro came with me the last time, and we introduced you to her. She's filling that role this year, and it has been invaluable because we are becoming much more regulated, similar to special education. So while we're seeing these increases in population and our demographics are changing and we're all trying to figure this out, at the same time, the state is asking more from us. We're required to do more paperwork, similar to special education. Our students are also held to standards by the state for their testing. I think during one of the presentations, it was mentioned or asked about students. I think, Ms. Monaco, you asked about students' requirements for English language instruction.
Student-to-teacher ratio requirements.
Correct. And one of the pieces that influences that is whether students passed or met the state targets, I should say. So the state sets targets for their access testing each year. And so at the end of the year, the students get a target. If they do not meet that target the following year, then they are required to be on a plan, on a success plan, as well as they are required to have more instructional minutes. So that obviously means that we need more time, and more time means more staffing with students. So that can impact as well how we staff our program. So I just wanted to mention those two things. And again, as far as the assessor piece, Maylee's been very busy this whole year doing the interim assessments that are required for students who are on the success plans. So not only do they need more instructional minutes, but we have to do interim assessing throughout the year to make sure they're making progress. We have to do access testing, and she has been instrumental in not only leading that, but also doing much of the testing. And what that has enabled is allowing the teachers to teach. And that obviously is important so that we get them instructional minutes that we need for students. And she's been screening all the new students coming into our district. She has one student today, one student tomorrow, another student at Fox Hill. So this has been ongoing, and it's throughout the year. So this isn't something we can just plan at the beginning. It's throughout the year. So that has been a huge help in helping our program. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Conti.
Again, Carrie, thank you for being so patient. Carrie also teaches adult English classes in the evening with Ms. Castro as well. So again, I'm sorry to take you out for another evening, but thank you very much. Your next LPAC meeting, again, the parent group is very successful. And when is that?
That's actually next Monday, the 27th, 6 o'clock at the Marshall Simons School in the library. And we're actually, our focus on this one is community support. So we have different organizations within the throughout the community, like Help Us, and our we also have our food bank, that's coming in. And so they're going to be sharing that information with the families, and that has a lot to do with the increasing need that we have among our families for support.
And I just wanted to say we're so lucky to have you. Again, I'm always impressed when you do a presentation, and like I said, going into your classroom on Friday was, again, educational, and really appreciated it. And I also wanted to say you do a lot more than just what you mentioned, because it's also the students who are coming in, it's helping them find health care and vaccines. And so there's so much more to what you do than I think everyone knows, and I really appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you, but I definitely have to attribute it to an amazing team. And again, this is why I love working in Burlington. There's a team behind me of people who just are passionate about supporting students. So I'm thankful for that.
And I will thank the team as well. They're just not here.
Yeah,
Thank you for bringing that up. It does take a team. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, thank you so much.
Anyone else have a question or comment? Oh, Ms. Simon. Oh, I thought you did, Coach Hawk. I'm so okay.
I just have to mention too, Miss Simon helped me teach my adult ESL class last night. It was great to have her join me.
That's because I had the wrong week for the LPAC meeting, and I showed up, and
We
it
don't
was
need to mention that.
Well, good. But I had a lot of fun. It was great.
So thank you for all your support. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right,
Yep.
take care.
Carrie, thank you.
Thank you to you and your team. So next up is transportation.
Transportation, again, I think this increase is contractual. I'm sure I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. Is that?
Yes, it's contractual. It's based off of a consumer price index that we don't have the full information for yet because it goes through the end of the year. So this is the consumer price index, and we're predicting out the remaining months of the year for what that will come in at. So that's the increase that you're seeing there.
Thank you. Any questions, Ms. Simon?
I remember when we were hiring that there was an increase built in for gas prices. Is this also include like staffing, salaries, and what?
So this is all expenses for transportation under
All
our
expenses
contract.
In our contract, so it's not just gas increases, it's any increases?
It's, so it's applied to, I think, our daily yellow bus, and late bus, and I think that's it, that the CPI applies to.
Again, we're purchasing a service, so
Yeah.
I'm
So
sure.
they don't have to spend it on their staff?
No.
Okay, but they get it if there is a CPI. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Massardo?
Are the traffic supervisors for the elementary schools included in the elementary school budgets?
The traffic supervisors, I don't believe so. Aren't they covered by the police? I'm sorry?
Mr. Kuna.
When you say traffic
Well, I see traffic
supervisors,
supervisor, high school, middle school, those crossing guards?
those are yes, crossing guards.
Okay, so there's a crossing guard at Fox Hill, that's not out of this budget?
Nope.
Okay, why is that?
It's a very good question. So it was not bid as part of the contract, nor was
Okay.
the high school one.
Okay. There's one at Pine Glen, too.
There's one at all the schools.
Okay.
Yep, so, yeah, they were not bid as part of the contract.
Okay.
So when I say.
So we pay these through the bus contract?
No, Burlington Police bills us for those.
Okay.
I think this is just on the detail. I think, like, the total amounts are correct. I think it's just not split out for the elementaries, too.
The total is 42,000.
Yeah.
So like high school is they're somehow enveloped in high school and middle school?
Yeah, I think the detailed description is just not accurate, but the total amount is.
Okay.
I'm sorry, through the
Ms.
chair. So,
Simon.
and that total does include the elementary, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Again, Bob, just make sure I'm correct. This will be the last year of this transportation contract?
Correct.
Fiscal '24, so we'll need to.
It's a 5-year contract that we're currently in. We're in year 4 right now. July 1 will be year 5.
Yeah, so we'll have to rewrite the RFP and rebid the contract.
Can hardly wait.
That will be fun.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I'm
Operations and plant?
trying to move us along, because
Yep.
we are combining 2 meetings into one.
Oh, yeah.
Operations and plant, is that maintenance operations plant? So Bob, essentially you're level funded, going up about $5,000? Is that?
Yeah,
That
through the
was
chair.
to increase the organic field maintenance to 25,000.
That $5,000?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, so that speaks to the increase in the operations and maintenance of the plant, is the organic fertilizer?
Field maintenance.
Field
yeah.
maintenance,
Yep.
sorry.
In partnership with the rec department.
I'm just curious how on earth we're able to level fund electricity. Serious question.
So I can answer that.
Ms.
So
Kosher.
for utilities, typically the DPW director sends out like guidelines for electric and gas, and what we received from DPW was to level fund our accounts for those.
Okay. What happens when the electricity costs go up? Like they are right now?
So I think like we have town like contracts that we're locked in at certain
Okay,
rates.
okay.
And then like there's different different rates depending on like who your supplier was under, how we bid it out. So so for all of ours, they were suggesting a 0%.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on that? Okay, Dr. Conti, we can move, I think, to the last item, which is capital warrant articles.
So with that, I'm gonna,
No, we did it.
health services was 0%, and so.
We did
that-
it,
that
yep,
was-
we
that
did
was
it in
fine.
order.
So,
Okay.
again, Ms. Simon, I apologize if I didn't mention that, but yeah, 0%. And
heard it.
You did.
the other
You
lines,
mentioned it.
again, we'll pick up at our next meeting on Tuesday. But now capital warrants, again, we require a vote this evening because the warrants are due Friday. So Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you and Nicole to go through the capital warrants.
Through the chair. So again, thank you, Dr. Conti. First, I'd like to say that we have a different process this year, so you've seen this different, but this is not the first time that I believe you all have seen or heard of these warrant articles. We did have one meeting where we discussed them, and what we've done since then is narrow down to fit within the budget guidelines that the town has given to us. And also, we've put them in kind of what a priority list. So we've actually started with a higher number of warrant articles and a higher number of requested funding and trimmed them down to fit within that, like I said, town-fitted guideline. Again, if I could jump through some of these, and then if there's some questions, I don't know if you want me to do one at a time, vote, go to the end. I think you need a vote on each one individually.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I think we should just go one by one and vote. That's probably the easiest way.
let's do that. Everyone else had time to talk. I'd like another 20 minutes to myself, so. I'm not presenting that. Do you want me to put that up there?
Yeah, and then we know what we're looking at. It might help. And then, like I said, we'll go one by one and vote on each.
School budget. Share. All right, let me go full size. Let me blow this up. All right, so again, sorry for that delay. The first one, again, they're not numbered, but the first one is Marshall Simons Middle School security cameras. This request follows similar to the high school request that you all saw last year for warrant articles. We're looking for additional cameras in the middle school, quite simply. While we did have a system installed when we did the MSBA project, since then we've upgraded some of those cameras already to put them on our system. MSBA ones were proprietary at the time, which didn't work with our system. The request that you're seeing right now is to replace some of those existing proprietary cameras, get everything onto our old system, which is our preferred system. That's been upgraded, it's not necessarily old. And then also add additional cameras to the Marshall Simons Middle School only. So this request is only for Marshall Simons Middle School to add additional cameras.
Thank you.
I make a motion to put forward the warrant article for for the MS security cameras for $45,111.
Second.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I'm in favor, so it's 500.
Thank you. The next one is Pine Glen Instructional Space. I don't want to say the word lumped into one, but what we should have called this necessarily is Pine Glen renovation to teaching spaces. And the reason I'm saying that is that we had additional warrant article 2 years back where we tried to convert either less used space or less desirable space into teaching spaces. We had intended at some point to get to the egg out front, but we spent more time and money on the storage areas downstairs. So what this is going to do is focus more on the egg since we ran out of some funds and would need to refocus on that. But since we still need Pine Glen to function, this also includes some drop ceilings that are in need of replacement. It includes some exterior doors that we've kind of put aside and now are definitely in need of repair. And it also includes one more additional space that was either storage at one point that we're trying to use now for instructional space. So again, we're going to hit a lot of spaces in Pine Glen with some updates if we can get funding on this.
Again, Madam Chair, you all visited Pine Glen. You know the need for expanding DSC classrooms, so that's part of included here. I'm sure the question will be, why spend this money on Pine Glen if we're building a new Fox Hill? Remember, that building's not going to be ready for 5 or 6 years, and Pine Glen has to function well in those 5 or 6 years. So again, I would support this funding for Pine Glen, and some of the doors that we're talking about are safety issues as well. So again, I just want to be clear that Pine Glen needs to function probably through 2028.
Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to put forward the Pine Glen instructional space warrant to town meeting for a total of $115,562.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And I'm in favor, so it's 500.
Thank you. Again, the next one is Burlington High School Lightspeed Amplification Systems. Quite simply, we have Lightspeed amplification systems in this room, but not every teaching space and classroom here at the high school. We have them at elementaries and middle schools, but at the high school, what we've done is a mobile model, and we've really attended it towards students as opposed towards the classroom teachers or all students. So what this system would be is to move away from a mobile model of bringing a device into the classroom. This would really just outfit all of the teaching spaces here at the high school, 100+ units, amplification systems.
And it's an equity issue, so I think we need to do what we can. Anyone have any questions on that, or you want to add anything?
I have a question, Madam Chair. Bob, some of the systems at the elementary schools, are they aging out? Are we going to need to replace?
Sure. I would say, again, similar to the questions that you all asked of Dennis or that Dennis brought forward, right? Anytime we have technology, there's always going to be a chance for it to outdate. There's going to be a chance for it to fail. Batteries are going to fail and so forth. Typically what happens with technology is that it gets end of life, and then there's a new replacement model, so then it's tough to get parts. So we did replace a lot of those systems, when Memorial and Marshall Simons were built, and then since then have staggered them in. So yeah, this would not be a new request, and definitely not going to be the last time you'll see something like this, moving forward.
Sorry, I didn't ask a clear question. Is this funding only for the high school?
Oh,
Are there some additional or upgrades for the other schools? Is it just the high school?
This is only for the high school.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we move forward the warrant article to town meeting for the BHS Lightspeed amplification systems for a total of $154,980.
Second.
Okay, any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm in favor, 500. Next.
The next one is for the Early Childhood Center here at the high school. It's to replace bathrooms that have not been updated. for as long as I could even remember. So at least for the 15 years I've been here, I'm not aware that they've been touched. That being said, originally they were designed for a larger student or a larger person to use them. So part of this renovation not only would be to update them and replace them, make them ADA compliant, which would serve a particular student, not particular student, a particular group of students, and then also bring the ADA compliance for height, given that the younger children are in the early childhood centers.
Do I have a motion?
I will move that we move forward this article to town meeting for the BECC student bathroom renovations for a total of $82,770.
Second.
And I also have a question about it.
Okay, I was just going to say, any discussion?
Okay,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Ms. Simon.
So I noticed also actually on the Pine Glen instructional space and on this one, that the description, I'm just delighted that we're using the town meeting format now to propose these warrant articles. I think it will help our town meeting members understand what we're looking for. But I think for some of these where there's multiple parts, I would like to request that maybe you add a little, like a bullet list on the project description. For the Pine Glen, it's a little more obvious to me, like, rebuild the egg space, ceilings, doorways, whatever. For this bathroom renovation, what you wrote here looks really appropriate, but it also then goes into like floors and ceilings, and so I would request that we be more specific. This includes not just the toilet fixtures, it's floors and ceilings and partitions or whatever it is that it includes all of. And yes, there's backup material for all of that, but for some people who kind of glaze over when they look at the invoices, I think it would be helpful to have a list of the parts. So for those two, and I haven't checked the other ones yet, I would like to request a little more detail for town meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Ms. Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Cuna.
Do we vote?
Do you have a motion? Pardon me?
Just take a vote.
Okay. Oh, she already did, that's right. Wake up. Anyway, so we had a motion, we had a second, and we had some discussion. So all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm in favor, so 500. It's a long day. Okay, next item, please.
Sorry, so the next one is Francis Wyman stairwell resurfacing. There are 4 main stairwells at Francis Wyman, and they have a synthetic surface on them. They are original to the building when it was redone in 1996, to the best of my knowledge, and they are just worn and in need of repair.
I will make a motion to move the warrant article forward to town meeting for the Francis Wyman stairwell resurfacing for the amount of $42,049.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm in favor, 500. Next item, please.
The next one is, so at Pine Glen, around the area underneath the roof is called the soffit, and the material that's there right now, again, original to the building that I'm aware of, so it's an older style material that's no longer used and starting to deteriorate and crack. We have noticed over many years where we've had either some repairs that needed to take place and also bees and so forth getting into the upper attic or the roof line of Pine Glen, causing us to have to treat that as well. So twofold, this would be replacing the soffit area around that, but also closing up some of the gaps created just by deterioration into the roof and attic space.
Okay.
So this
Is there a motion?
definitely a safety issue.
Yes, yep.
I will move that we move this warrant article forward to town meeting for Pine Glen siding and soffit repair for a total of $150,403.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm in favor, 500. Next item, please.
Thank you. Next item, Francis Wyman cafeteria grease trap. All of the water that is coming out of the kitchen in the sinks is required to go through a grease trap. The grease trap that's in there, again, also replaced in 1996 of the renovation. It's technically undersized, so we can't just replace it as is by code. So what it would require us to do is keep the sinks, but replace and jackhammer the floor, and the grease trap would be upsized to the correct size. It is failing, so we're not doing this just to make it up to code. We're doing it because it will no longer pass code at some point, very, very soon. Like, we are sneaking by now, just barely. So, again, the intent is to replace the grease trap prior to the start of the school year.
So let's quickly move this article forward to town meeting for the Francis Wyman Cafeteria Grease Trap for a total of $39,393.
Second.
Thanks.
Okay, any extra discussion? Ms. Simon?
Yes, I support this, of course, and I also would like to suggest that if we're going to be doing construction in the kitchen, that we coordinate it with new needs that may be showing up with our new food service management, with Whitson's, and see if there are other types of things that would go along with this digging up of the floor or the plumbing or whatever else is connected. If we're going to dig it up, let's see if there are other things that we would like, to do to make the new food service work, as efficiently as possible to, reduce workload if it's, whatever it is, just to make sure we don't just do this in isolation.
Mr. Kuna?
If I could just comment on that, I will take that as note, and I will coordinate with our food services director and food services company. So everyone on the committee is aware. The sinks are currently against the wall, and the plumbing that goes underneath that is what we're looking to replace, right? So we're looking at approximately 12 feet right up against the wall. So we're not ripping up the whole entire kitchen and everything that goes along with it, just related to the sink and the plumbing underneath it.
Thank you. Any more discussion or questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm in favor, so 500. Next item, please.
The next one is Memorial Fire Systems Upgrade. The acronym is BDA, which is Bidirectional Amplification. This is technology that is outdated. This was installed when Memorial was built in 2011. It's out of sync. It's no longer supported, and the company won't any longer certify it. So long story short is that on this one, we have to replace it, period. If we can't get funded, then we have to find another way to replace it because next year will not pass inspection, and this is required due to our building being so new and having the communications inside for first responders. So again, this is a bidirectional amplifier that in the event of emergency inside of the building, it eliminates dead spots for any emergency services such as police and fire. So
So I would like to move this forward to this warrant article to town meeting for the Memorial Fire System upgrades for $41,190.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I'm in favor, so 500.
all right, and the last one, we still have a to be determined number, and that means basically, I wish we had another week. While the snow day did give us another week to get to here, we've been working with the engineer and rec department to come up with a number. The number that you're asking for, that we'd like to ask you for, is for field improvements that are tied to the master field plan that we're working on. While that master field plan has a number of improvements that we could recommend to a lot of fields, we are narrowing it down to 3 particular fields. At those 3 particular fields, we could spend way more than the money that's here. But again, we're just trying to narrow that number down. I would say Francis Wyman baseball field is a high priority. Middle school field, not the turf one, which also will be a priority in upcoming years, but the grass field behind that. And also here at the high school, we have a practice field and then a second band field that are grass. That, as you can tell, are they don't drain water very well, and they are definitely a priority to get fixed. So what we're trying to do right now is make sure that we can get those numbers well within the guidelines that we have here, and make sure that we can present something that aligns with our master field audit as well, too.
So Bob, matter of timing, Madam Chair, I'm just trying to think. So we need a placeholder then for the town meeting warrant.
Correct.
And what you're saying is that we need the vote ahead of the detail, but the detail will be forthcoming, and it will match the amount of money that the town has provided us for warrants, and it will also align with the field study that we've just completed.
Yes.
So I would say that we wouldn't be presenting this if we didn't have the Friday deadline for the warrant. So what's the number that you want the warrant to essentially be a placeholder for? I didn't ask that well. How much money do you want this placeholder to be for? TBD?
But we
Yeah.
need to vote, like, if it's gonna be those 3 fields that were mentioned, I think we should do 3 separate placeholders for those amounts to TBD. And then if we change or don't go through with one of those, we'd be able to pull the article.
So you want to go on each school separately,
Well,
each field?
the ones that Bob, the ones that Bob just mentioned.
So there were 3 fields that were mentioned, and I think what Ms. Kasha is proposing is that we do a placeholder for each field. That way, if we have to pull something, we can.
So again, I would ask for then a motion for the Francis Wyman baseball field, a renovation, or what?
Can I request that the Francis Wyman one just be called the grass field at Francis Wyman?
Okay.
Because it's a multi-purpose field, so I don't want to just limit it to the baseball field.
Okay, so may I ask the committee?
I'd like to make a motion for a warrant article to town meeting for field maintenance and improvements and renovations at the Francis Wyman Fields behind the school as a placeholder for a TBD amount.
Second.
Okay, any extra discussion?
Yes, please. At rec last night, Director Egan was describing the meeting he had with Capital Budget, and one of the members on Capital Budget is planning to present an article to town meeting specifically about the baseball field. Did Brendan talk to you about this?
Again, through the chair, if I may.
Yes.
Yes, I've spoken to Brendan. I've spoken to both of these members as well, too, who are presenting it, and myself, Mr. Hart, Brendan Egan, and those 2 members have a meeting in my office at 10 a.m. So we do plan to discuss that in more detail. I realize that it looks like they could be overlapping. I think the plan that we would like to present, and we just want to make sure that it's in line with what they're asking for, doesn't overlap their plan.
Okay.
So
is that why you want to say grass field instead? I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it allows us a little bit more flexibility in the total square footage of grass that's out there.
Absolutely. I appreciate the coordination that you're going with, Rec.
Do you want to change the motion to say grass field, or?
I think I did.
Did you say that? Okay, I must have missed part of that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, as the rec commission representative, do you feel like this would coordinate, and for Mr. Cuna, because one or the other could be withdrawn, would this cover what they are asking for, as well as our request for perhaps the soccer fields as well?
It's my understanding that the one coming from the town meeting member is specific to the baseball field, and it sounds like you want to have this one be focused on the overall. And you said you had a meeting tomorrow?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think the coordination is there, which again, I appreciate.
Okay, so we have a motion. Second?
Second.
And we had discussion, and so all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And I'm in favor, so 500.
I'd like to make a motion, and I welcome help on the wording, to move forward a field maintenance and improvements and renovations warrant article to town meeting for the Marshall Simons grass field. Is that an accurate description of it?
If not grass field, then just athletic fields.
Athletic field,
Fields.
but would
because
that be
there's a whole
including the
field
turf?
complex.
Including the turf? Are we talking about including the turf?
Right, but even around the turf, there is
Okay.
grass, and, and there's no scoring.
The
which we're looking to
Marshall
put it-
Simons athletic
Athletic
fields.
fields.
Athletic fields for an amount to be decided.
Second.
Okay, any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm in favor, so 500.
I'd like to
Last
make
one.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to move this warrant article to town meeting for field maintenance improvements and renovation of the Burlington High School practice field and band fields. Is there any other areas that do we want to broaden that at all? Or is that going to meet?
I would feel better if it said athletic fields or athletic facilities at the high school.
Okay, I would like to make the motion that for field maintenance improvements and renovations on the athletic fields at Burlington High School.
Second.
For TBD amount.
Second.
Okay, any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm in favor, so 500.
What about the feasibility?
I believe that's the last one, correct? All right.
That's done.
Oh, we voted.
Dr. Conti, anything you want to add?
Move we adjourn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I really appreciate your patience cramming 2 meetings into one. I think if we hadn't started at 6, we would have been much later. So I know it was a long evening, a lot of information, but the staff, I'm just so proud of all the staff. They work really hard, and I think they do appreciate the opportunity to come before the committee to thank you for your support and also to articulate their needs moving forward. So again, thank you for providing the time to listen, and so again, I know the evening was long. We will be back on a regular business meeting schedule next week. We still have some budget to get through. The Ways and Means Subcommittee meetings are going to start soon, and then we'll start the difficult process of trying to make the numbers work a little bit over time. So if you have any questions that come up on the budget between now and the next meeting, please contact my office or Nicole. I think we'll make sure you get accurate information if you need to, if a question comes up as you're looking through the document.
I move we adjourn.
Oh, well,
First, hold on one second. I wanted to thank you all for staying through the whole process. And
I
your
have one
question?
other thing. Did I miss the vote on the capital warrant request for the feasibility study?
already
No,
did
that's,
it.
no,
We
that's
did.
next. I'm sorry.
Oh, you told me we
I
did
did.
it.
I told you I made a mistake. I thought you meant the field feasibility study, which we had already
right.
done. So
Thank you, Ms.
my
Simon.
mistake. So that was a big mistake. So I
Well,
apologize.
Thank you,
So,
Ms. Simon.
Thank you for checking
Forgiven,
me.
now do it.
Now do it. So go ahead, Bob.
Trying to drag us to 4 hours.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think at the request of not only the school department, but of course through school committee as well too, we'd like to present to town meeting the opportunity to fund a BHS feasibility study. I think that this is something that we are looking to ask for outside of guideline. And also I think that, given your advice and or direction, if you so choose, we could look at possibly looking to give back the $450,000, which was funded last year, thankfully through town meeting, for the BHS music room floors. So I think ultimately what we'd want to do is trying to take a step back a little bit and slow down on just jumping into the repairs at the high school. While we've done some studies already to look at building structure, to look at ADA compliance, to look at HVAC cost and assessment, we really just need this all tied in together, which is what the BHS feasibility study would do. One report that could tell us what's really going to happen. What does our next 5-year plan look like? What would it cost or take to put an addition on this building, to put a new building in its place, and so forth. So I think, again, taking that step back, getting this in place would really help us benefit, even if we were to get the MSBA funding or not, put a direction towards our future steps with the high school.
Do we have an amount?
We're asking for $1.5 million. I'm speaking with the consultants that we've worked with, or that we're working with right now for Fox Hill. We think that's an accurate number.
I'd like to make a motion to move forward a warrant article to town meeting for a BHS feasibility study for the amount of $1,500,000.
Second.
Any additional discussion?
Is the ask the 1.5 or is it the 1,050 or 1,050,000?
I was going to make a second motion to give
Right, but
back
with the
the other money.
450.
If we're giving the 450 back is what he's asking.
Oh, that's
How's that going to work procedurally?
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
So I think it would be written to as one article and then to repurpose the previously allocated funds for the BHS music room floor.
Okay.
Why would you put that in the same warrant article?
So
We
that,
can- We can come to that agreement at some point, but why would you put it in the warrant article?
because that would lower the cost, so that.
So the ask is only
The ask is actually
1,040,000.
less, but, or it could be less.
Yeah, all right. I wouldn't do it that way, but I'll vote for it.
So I would like to change my motion, that we request of town meeting a BHS feasibility study and to, how did you word it?
Repurpose.
And the feasibility study and to repurpose a previous warrant article for the music room at the high school, the high school music room floor, which was $450,000, with a total request for this warrant article of
1.5.
1.1, no,
1.05.
$1,050,000. So then the 1.5 million is not in the warrant article. We're going to repurpose $450,000 and request $1,050,000. If people are not happy with this, let's not second it yet, but is that, maybe, Mary Ann, could you read it back to us, or not yet? Not yet.
I think we should ask for the 1.5, and then it should be
Right.
the asterisk
Ask for
would be the-
1.5 and then
with the,
explain it at town meeting.
Right.
Because
The
if it
intent
doesn't
to.
get passed, we're screwed.
right, right, with the intent to negotiate the music room flooring. I don't know how we want to word that, but
It just doesn't belong in the same warrant article.
Do we need, in order to repurpose that money, do we have to take a separate vote?
Separate vote at
But-
town meeting, yes.
At town no, I think they,
Yes.
wait, let me try. We voted that warrant article for $450,000, and it's been approved by town meeting, but we have in the past re-voted to not use money and give it back. So that doesn't involve a town meeting vote, which means maybe we shouldn't put it together.
You can't use it for the new vote without a separate vote at town meeting.
So my suggestion is, because of the Friday deadline, if you could just vote the 1.5
Yeah.
BHS feasibility study.
Yeah.
I will give Darren a call,
Okay.
and I think you can always
Modify the,
modify
Okay.
or.
amend the
Can we don't
motion.
need that
So
for Friday.
I would like to go back and redo my motion that we, I'm on the wrong page, that I'd like to propose a warrant article for a BHS feasibility study for town meeting for $1.5 million.
Second.
any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm in favor, 500.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
I don't think there's any discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm aye, 500. We're adjourned. If my contact lenses had cooperated at the beginning, I couldn't.